ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 1 of the series. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. The sun was at its peak, the light shinned down from onto the park, but our story starts not there, but with a group of children standing against one lone child, shaking in fear, tears in his eyes, protecting the sobbing kid behind him. Izuku, why are you being so mean, Kachan? Don't you see you're hurting if you keep on doing this, Ala? I'll stop you myself. He shouted, raising his fist shakily. The kids before him smirked at Izuku and activated their quirks. The fat child in a singlet on the left released 2 large red bat-like wings and was lifted a few feet off the ground. The kid on the right extended his fingers, and the boy in the middle pounded his fist against his palm, causing a small explosion in between his hands. Katsuki, you want to pretend to be a hero? You don't stand a chance without a quirk, Deku. He mocked, smirking cruelly at Izuku, who gasped and took a step back in fear from the bullies who charged at him together and began beating him up. Izuku's thoughts. It hurts. A dark emotion began bubbling up within Izuku, as something unnatural began consuming his thoughts. Bakugo then hit him with an explosion in the stomach, causing Izuku to cough up some vital fluid. Izuku thoughts. I hate this. The crimson color, which coated a small portion of the ground, began to penetrate Izuku's once clear sight. The 2 kids behind Bakugo punched him across the face as the chubby kid dived down against Izuku's back and forced him to the ground. The one thing in Izuku's eyes that wasn't a ruby red was the boy who Izuku once called his brother. Izuku thoughts, I hate you. Bakugo ran to hit Izuku when he was blasted back and knocked out by an invisible force. The 2 lackeys looked at Izuku in shock as his eyes glowed bright red and orange, but what scared them even more was the demonic crimson arm that formed over his own. Izuku radiated a wave of sheer malice and hate, causing the boys to tear up and ran away in fear as every cell in their body screamed at them to escape. However, they weren't the only ones who ran. Monster, someone help us. He heard the kids in the park scream as they ran away. Izuku looked at his hand in fear. He could feel the intent to kill. The desire to destroy it terrified him, but what scared him the most was Bakugo, who had some bleeding down his head for being slammed into a tree. Izuku began hyperventilating. His breaths became faster, as did his rapidly rising chest, and before he knew it, he screamed in sheer despair and terror over what he had done. Here's the sad truth, all men are not created equal. When I was 4 years old, I learned that some kids have more powers than others, but those who were truly unlucky were the ones who received the more sinister type of abilities dubbed villainous quirks. Time skip. It wasn't long before I discovered that a curse like mine was something I would be judged and attacked for. So, with no choice but to hide my quirk from everyone and lie that I was never born with a quirk, I was dubbed quirkless and bullied through most of my life. But that won't hold me back. If anything, it pushes me to do better. An older Izuku could be seen running down the street and stopping at a traffic light, waiting for it to turn green for him to keep going. Finally, it went green, and Izuku continued on his way. He ran under a group of sakura trees till he saw a villain attack and smiled, stopping to observe the scene. Izuku. Haha, that's one huge supervillain. Wow, the pro hero's death arm and backdraft. A random civilian spoke out loud in awe of the 2 pro heroes. Backdraft, the water hero, wore a costume similar to that of a firefighter. With jets of water blasting out the hose like cannons attached to his arms, he prevented civilians from approaching with the assistance of the police, who were just as amazed at the hero's abilities. Meanwhile, Death Arms, the punching hero, had caught the top half of the now-destroyed cell tower, so it wouldn't harm any of the surrounding citizens. And finally, Kamui Woods swung into action. A new hero who had begun making a name for himself, with his adoring fans squealing out his name, he began his fight with the giant villain. using the large constructs around him by transforming his wooden arms to tendrils in order to avoid the giant villain's attacks. He landed on the train station rooftop and stared the villain in the eyes. In a superhuman society with 90% of our world's population being born with some sort of uncanny ability, people began using their quirks in a more violent manner, acting out against the law and hurting others. So with the ever-growing criminal society, a new profession quickly rose. And these brave men and women are called heroes. Izuku started fanboying, a bright smile on his face. Izuku, it's Kamui Woods. He may be new, but he's making a big name for himself. The old man beside him with an odd star shape on the top of his head noticed the smile on Izuku's face and smirked. One look at that dopey grin on your face, and I know what you are. You're a fanboy. This made Izuku embarrassed, so looking away he smiled sheepishly, maybe a little he mumbled. When Kamui Wood was about to be brought down, he called out his ultimate move. Izuku, here it comes. The preemptive. Kamui, binding. Lacquered chain prison. Kamui was about to unleash his attack when another new pro hero arrived at the scene. She was a giant woman with a purple and color skin-tight suit. Canyon Cannon. She shouted high, kicking the villain, knocking him unconsciousness and into his back, causing everyone to freeze in shock. Kamui, huh? The cameramen all began taking photos. Body shot, body shot, body shot, they chanted, admiring her body. Unknown character. A piece of cake for the world's next hottest hero. Hi there, everyone. I'm MT Lady. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. She spoke with a charming tone, sticking her butt out in a pose and winking to the public. The cameramen all began taking photos of her. Body shot, body shot, body shot. They continued making Izuku angry. Ever since he was a kid, he hated this kind of thing, especially when random men would stare at his mother, but his dad would scare them off. So taking a page out of his old man's book, Izuku shouted, "Hey, you shouldn't be taking pictures of a lady without her permission. It's up to her if she wants her beauty to be captured. And even if she did, it's not in your dirty thoughts." Having been called out on their perversion, the cameramen stopped and bowed an apology, then run away. It also made MT Lady blush slightly due to his chivalry, although he quickly made his way out of there, and a school worried about being late. Although it's not like it would matter after all, who would care for a quirkless Decorite? Time skip to Adler Junior High. Teacher. So as third-year students, it's time to start thinking seriously about what you want to do with your lives. Now, I could pass out some career aptitude requests, but everyone began to activate their quirks. Teacher, why bother? I know you all want to enter the hero track. He shouted, throwing the papers in the air, as everyone cheered behind him using their quirks illegally. Bakugo, hey teach, don't lump me in with this bunch of losers. I'm the real deal. But these losers would be lucky to end up as sidekicks for some busted-up D-lister hack. The now grown-up Bakugo Katsuki scoffed at the rest of his classmates while leaning back in his chair arrogantly. Everyone, you think you're better than U.S. Katsuki. Bakugo, let's go, I'll take you all on. He shouted with absolute certainty of his victory over them. Teacher, huh, you got impressive test results, maybe you will get into UA. He said, reviewing Bakugo's results on a clipboard as the class murmured about UA and how difficult it is to get in. Random 1. Here's going to try for the nation school. Random 2. That school has a 2.0 acceptance rate. It's impossible to get in. Bakugo, that's exactly why it's the best school for me. He jumped up on his table. I aced all the mock tests. I'm the only one in this school able to get into UA, and then I'll take down All Might and be the richest hero of all time. People all across the world will know who I am, and it'll all start at UA High. He exclaimed with complete and total arrogance. Teacher, oh yeah, Midoriya, don't you want to go to UA too? The teacher smirked mockingly as Bakugo froze, and the class looked at Izuku as he kept his head down. It was all quiet before they broke out into laughter. Everyone, ha 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 ha. Random 3. Midoriya, yeah right. Random 4. You can't get into UA without a quirk. Izuku, they changed that rule. I could be the first one. He spoke standing up trying to convince them, but suddenly his desk was exploded and he was sent against the wall behind him. Bakugo, listen up, Deku, you're even worse than these bunch of rejects you quirkless want to be. You think they'd have you when they could have me? Izuku. Oh no, wait, you got all wrong, really. Izuku scampered back till he bumped into the wall. Behind him, I'm not trying to compete against you. You gotta believe me. He pleaded and then looked down. It's always been my dream to go into UA and be a hero. I may not have a quirk, but I can still try, can't I? He asked, causing Bakugo to get even angrier and his hands to start smoking. Katsuki, you'd never be able to stand with the best of the best. You'd die in the exams, defenseless Izuku. This school is already trash. Do you really want to embarrass it more by failing so hard? He said as the class began looking like monsters in Izuku's eyes. One could call it a wild imagination, or some may even say it was a hallucination, but I believe it was me seeing them for what they all truly were. Random 5, what a loser. Random 6, quirkless idiot. Random 7, he's so pathetic. For the monsters I could have been like. Time skip. Izuku was packing his things as his remaining classmates waved goodbye to each other and left. Taking out his phone, he found the incident with MT Lady on the news. Izuku, he looks like I got some more notes to write. He chuckled to himself, holding up his notebook filled with many late nights of work, when it was aggressively snatched away. Looking up, he found Bakugo and his lackeys smirking at him with way too much pride. Katsuki, I don't know what you think you're doing, Deku, but we ain't done yet. He told them with a glare. Lackey 1, what you got there? His diary? He then took a look at the title of the notebook. Lackey 2, don't tell me you're taking notes on how to become a hero. That's pathetic, ha ha ha. He laughed at Izuku before Bakugo exploded the book in between his hands. A whiff of the scent from the burnt paper and ink swiftly made its way through Izuku's nose as a piece of him felt torn apart. Izuku, no. Bakugo then threw it out the window. Izuku, why? How could you do that? Bakugo then placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder and triggered his quirk at a weaker strength, causing some smoke to come out as he burned the uniform, and slowly, the boy's shoulder along with it take some advice, and don't even think about applying. He pushed Izuku back, making him trip and fall to the ground. Bakugo, most first-string heroes are seen when they're young. People just look at them and know they're destined for greatness. It's not ego talking, I just know I'm good. Lackey, ego. His lackey murmured as they began walking away, while mocking him on the way out. Bakugo, however, stopped at the door. Bakugo, you know Deku there might be a way for you to get a quirk. He looked back to Izuku, who looked at him with a small glimmer of hope in his eyes. Bakugo, take a swan dive off the roof and pray for a quirk in your next life. He mocked, walking away as Izuku's eyes widened. A crimson color began invading Izuku's emerald color eyes as his fist clenched harder than ever and a single tear made its way down to the wooden floor. Time skip. Izuku walked to the back of the school, finding his notebook in a pond with a fish nibbling on his notebook. Izuku, stupid idiot, what if I'd really jump? What would you do then to my dreams of turning to fish food? That's enough, give it back. He said, snatching it out of the water while gritting his teeth in anguish and staring at his book. Stupid idiot. Looking down at his right hand, Izuku clenched his fist and shut his eyes. Izuku thoughts. I was born with no quirk, that's what I was told, so how can I have this curse? And why couldn't it have been something more heroic? Flashback. Izuku, Mum, hurry. A young 4-year-old Izuku slid into the kitchen of his home. Finding his beloved mother washing some dishes, he ran to her side. Izuku, it's computer time. He shouted enthusiastically. Inko, huh, already? The two then went to the computer room. Izuku sat on the big chair in his room while his mom put the video on. My mother's name is Inko Midoriya. She used to be a hero when she was younger and went by the name Magnetic, but when she was preggo with me, she hung up her cape and gave everything she had into raising me. Izuku, faster, come on. He swung his head back and forth, causing her to giggle. Inko, geez, I think you've added 10,000 views to this one yourself, Izuku. I don't know why you like. And I think it's scary. She told him, putting the video on, as a huge smile found itself on his face. The video I loved was an old disaster footage from a long time ago, but more importantly, it was the debut of the greatest hero the world has ever known. And while I loved it, my mother never did, but despite that, she always did her best to make me happy. Izuku's smile brightened as he watched All Might save everyone his eyes shining brightly as he watched the video. Izuku. He's the coolest in the universe. And once I get my quirk, I'm going to be a hero, just like him. Ha 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 ha. Time skip. Sorry, kid, it's not going to happen. Izuku's face went as pale as a ghost from the shock of hearing that, dropping his toy in the process. Inko. Oh dear, is something wrong then? I mean, everyone else's age has been able to use some kind of ability. Doctor, my records say you're a fourth-generation quirk user. What powers do you and the boy's father have? Inko. Well, I have a rather strong telekinesis quirk, and my husband breathes fire. They're both strong quirks, I suppose, she said, bringing the toy into her hand. Doctor, the boy should have gotten his quirk a while ago, but viewing his X-rays, I don't think that's going to happen. You see, when superpowers first began appearing, there were many research studies conducted, and doctors discovered a connection between the bones of a person's foot and the likelihood of them acquiring a quirk. People with powers have one joint in their pinky toe. Their powers evolve to a more stream-like version of the human form. You can see here that your son has two joints in his pinky, like roughly 20% of the population. These days, based on the research available, it's safe to say that your son isn't going to develop a quirk. Anguish of the quirkless. It was currently nighttime, and the sound of heavy rain echoed around the apartment complex. The video could be heard playing in the background. Inko stood in front of the door of her baby's room. The room was dark, and all that illuminated it was the laptop screen. The big chair in front of it hid little Izuku's body as Inko stared at her son. Izuku. See that, Mom? There's always a smile on his face, no matter how bad things get. Inko took a step forward, hearing her son's voice. The trembling of his heart, poisoning his once joyous voice, felt like a knife stabbing her heart. Izuku. No matter how bad things get, he never gives up. Izuku's voice was falling apart like a house of sticks in the middle of a storm. All you could hear was despair and heartache, and when he turned, revealing his destroyed expression. Inko teared up and covered her mouth with tears welling up as she collapsed, hugging Izuku, who carried a broken smile on his face as he pointed shakily to the screen. Izuku, can I be a hero, too? He asked his dear mother. She walked to him and collapsed, hugging her baby. Inko, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Izuku. I wish things were different. Tears continued falling down his eyes. Although Inko wished for her baby to never pursue heroics, this was far from what she ever wanted, and all she could do was blame herself. Mom, that's not what I needed you to say. Couldn't you see my world was crumbling? There was only one thing I wanted to hear. In a flashback, I made a vow that day that no matter what anyone else thinks, I have to believe in myself, and I'll keep smiling just like him. Izuku walked under a bridge laughing like All Might before hearing a strange noise sound him. He turned around, seeing something building up behind him, a large sludge-like villain. Izuku, a villain. He whimpered as it towered over him. You'll make a perfect skin suit for me to hide in, kid. The villain's voice sounded like a man speaking while gurgling water. Izuku ran away as it jumped over, enveloping him in its green sludge-like body and shoving itself forcefully down his throat and through his nose. Sludge, don't worry, I'm just taking over your body. It'll be easier for both of us. If you don't fight back, you'll feel better soon. Izuku's thoughts. I can't breathe. He teared up. Sludge, thanks for the help, kid. You're my hero. I didn't know he was in the city. I gotta get out of here fast before he tracks me down. Izuku thoughts. My body's getting weaker. I think I'm gonna die. I have to use it. Izuku's right arm was suddenly surrounded by a crimson orangish aura that slowly became more physical when suddenly the manhole cover flew off, and from it emerged a large man. Unknown character. Fear not, citizen, you're safe. Now that I'm here, that is. Standing before the two was a large man in a skin-tight white shirt, with a bright smile and blonde hair with two tufts standing up straight like bunny ears. He wore green pants and a silver belt buckle with dark brown muscle shoes. It was All Might. The villain sent his tendrils to attack him, but he ducked, dodging it, and charged forward, reeling his fist back. Texas smash, punching the villain and sending a power blast of air, blowing the villain apart. Izuku looked in shock at the giant of a man before him, and then he fainted. All Might, he muttered. Time skip. All Might was lightly slapping Izuku at high speed, trying to wake him up. All Might, Hey, wake up, Izuku. Slowly woke up, thought, I lost you there. Izuku's face morphed into one of shock before he scooted back, screaming. Izuku, All Might. Well, looks like you're all right. Sorry about that back there. You got caught up in my justicing. And although I have no idea what happened to the villain, I usually do keep civilians safe. It turns out the city sewer system is pretty hard to navigate. Anyway, you were a big help. I've captured the evildoer, he said, showing Izuku 2 soda bottles with the villain in them. Izuku thoughts. The most amazing hero in the entire world, All Might in front of me in the flesh. He looks so much cooler in person. Holy cow, I need to get his autograph. Where's my notebook? Izuku found his notebook and was about to ask the man to sign it when he found he already had caused him to scream in shock and begin bowing at high speeds. Gratefully, thank you very much. This will be a family heirloom for generations to come. All Might gave a thumbs up. All Might. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must hand this villain to the police to deal with him. See you around, he said, crouching about to jump away. Izuku. Hey, wait, you're leaving already? All Might. Pro heroes always have to be prepared for another villain to attack. I'm taking off. Thanks for your continued support, he shouted, leaping through the air when he felt something on his foot and turned back to see Izuku flailing through the air. All Might. Hey, let go. I love my fans, but this is too much, he shouted, trying to shake Izuku off his leg. Izuku. No way we're flying. If I let go now, I'll die. All Might then realized it. Oh, I guess you're right. I just have so many things to ask you. Please, All Might. You're my favorite hero of all time, he shouted at All Might, who took a moment before agreeing. Fine. Just close your mouth and eyes, he told Izuku, who did as told. All Might had a little vital fluid escape his mouth. Oh no, he said to himself. Time skip. All Might landed on a random roof with Izuku, who leaned on his knees for support, nearly toppling over. Breathing heavily, he managed to speak. I just saw my entire life flash before my eyes, he said to himself. All Might. All right, I must leave. Knock on the door, they'll be sure to let you in. Izuku, wait, please. All Might. No, I don't have any time. Izuku. I have to know. Memories of his past flashed through his mind. Izuku thoughts. If I can't be a hero without a quirk, then. Izuku. Can someone with a dangerous power like mine become a hero like you? He shouted at All Might, who stopped. All Might turned slightly, looking at Izuku, who had his eyes closed and looking down. Meeting All Might that day was a miracle come true, and little did I know that that meeting would change my life forever. All Might shook in pain, hunching over. He held his side stomach with some vital fluid escaping his lips. But our protagonist was too absorbed with his question to take notice of the pro, who had steam coming out of him. Izuku. When I first discovered my ability, I thought I was quirkless, and I was super excited about it. But the more I used it, the more people grew afraid of me. So I hid it. But ever since I was a kid, I thought that saving people was the coolest thing you could do. I want people to see my fearless smile and be the kind of hero everyone in the world looks up to, just like you, he said, looking up with a smile at the now skin and bones version of All Might. Izuku shook with shock at the man in front of him, standing in his beloved hero's place. Izuku, he screamed in terror. Izuku, All Might? He shouted in shock, looking at the shriveled-up man. Izuku, did you deflate? What happened? How is this even possible? No, you can't be him. You're a fake and imposter. What did you do with the real All Might? All Might. Young man, I assure you, I'm All Me PFFT. Vital fluid splurted out the shriveled husk of a man's mouth like the drool one would have sleeping. Izuku, impossible. All Might. You know how guys at the pool are always sucking in and flexing, trying to look buff? I'm like that, he said while wiping his mouth. Izuku. This can't be real. No. I'm dreaming. All Might's a giant of a man who saves everyone. He defeats all obstacles and saves the day with a fearless smile. Hearing his words, All Might understood. The boy saw him as everyone else did. An unshakable symbol, one that couldn't be toppled, but that was far from the truth. All Might. So there's plenty of fear behind that smile. His tone was filled with exhaustion and a deep sadness born from a mountain of mistakes carried upon his shoulders. He walked to the bars of the rooftop railing in front of him and sat down, leaning on them, sighing as he did so. All Might, I expect you not to tell your friends about this or put it online. Putting his faith in the young man before him, He raised his shirt, revealing a scar, making Izuku jump back. Repulsed by the sight before him, deep scar tissue surrounding a hole-like wound on the man's side, the bone underneath barely revealing theme cells due to the enormous wound on his side. All Might. Pretty gross, right? I got this in a fight a few years back. My respiratory system was destroyed. I lost my whole stomach. Now I can only do hero work for a few hours a day. Rest of the time, this is what I look like. The look in the hero's eyes reflected the deep sadness and weakness that embodied the mighty hero, one that he could never allow others to see. Izuku gasped, no way. 5 years ago, does that mean it was the fight with Toxic Chainsaw? He questioned him, using his deep fanboy knowledge to clarify when the symbol of peace was wounded. Wow, you really know your stuff, but no, the punk may have landed some hits, but he couldn't bring me down. Most of the world has never heard of this fight. I did everything I could to keep it under wraps. All Might turned to look up at the sky, his eyes narrow, as the memories of the night that changed everything flashed through his eyes. All Might, anyway, you were telling me about this dangerous quirk of yours. Please continue from there. Izuku winced, as his curse had been brought up. It was something he often tried to forget and leave in the back of his mind, but when he saw his hero, he just couldn't help himself. Despite everything he was called for it, despite all the things it allowed him to do, he needed to know if he could truly be a hero despite his power. Izuku, it's not a quirk, sir. You see, I have an extra joint in my foot, so it's impossible for me to have a quirk, at least that's what I was told. Izuku waited for All Might to respond since the pro looked very confused, but it wasn't too surprising after all. He told the man that he had a power, and it wasn't a quirk. A power that's not a quirk? I don't understand. Izuku, I haven't told anyone about this, not even my mother, since I was a kid, because I was afraid of how she would react, but I want to ask you if even with this power of mine, could I become a hero like you? All Might, say, young man, I don't completely understand what this power you speak of is, but even if it's dangerous for someone who was told he was quirkless to still have an ability, it's a GI. Izuku, it's not a gift. All Might flinched from the boy's sudden flare. Izuku, seeing his reaction, looked down at his hand as it shook guilt-ridden. The memory of the power he felt was intoxicating, but so was the hate, the intent to kill, the desire to end Bakugo right then and there. He could still feel it all. It was unlike anything he had ever felt. Strength, speed, all of it become a whirlwind of power, and the desire to use that power on everyone around him was what scared him. Izuku, it's a curse, he said, holding his arm, as All Might stared at him, worriedly wondering what could have caused the boy in front of him to fear his gifts. Boom! The two felt pressurized air around them and turned to see smoke coming out from the central plaza. All Might, what is that? Izuku, a villain. Rushing off the roof and down the stairs of the building they stood on, both Izuku and All Might ran to the scene. At the scene, the sludge villain was causing havoc all over the mall. Stores once filled with bustling customers now laid in ruin, consumed by flames. The police kept the people behind them using the emergency safety tape they each kept on their person as the hero's death arms, Kamui Woods, and Backdraft arrived, preparing to engage the threat ahead. Death arms, how dare you prey on child? He shouted at the sludge villain, launching himself forward and reeling his fist back, all his power focused into a single punch meant to scatter the sludge villain and free the spiky-haired teen trapped inside. Unfortunately, his fist, though carrying 2 tons of force, had barely made the villain move upon contact. A malicious and mocking laughter escaped the lips of the sludge villains as Death Arm's fist sunk into its body while trying to pull himself out. What is this? Some type of goo? He shouted, too distracted by his predicament, to notice the tendril extending from the villain's side and swinging right into him, sending the colossal muscular hero smashing back into a metal wall. Extra Hero 1. You okay, Death Arms? Extra Hero 2. Look out. The second hero shouted to his associate, checking on Death Arms. Alert, they both dodged an incoming tendril that smashed down on the shop behind them, destroying it in a single hit. Sludge, stay back, or I'll snap his neck. The hostage let out a scream, filled with rage, forcing his head and hands out the sludge villain's hold, revealing himself to be Bakugo. Bakugo Gra, you picked the wrong guy to mess with. I'm gonna blow you up and send you back to whatever hole you crawled out of. He shouted, creating small explosions, but nothing weakened his restraints. Let me go, he screamed. The panic of his situation began to nestle its way deep into the pits of Bakugo's mind. His desire to be free igniting the sweat in his palms, creating large explosions which sent the heroes ahead, stumbling back. Sludge, you've got so much power, I've really hit the jackpot. With a quirk like yours under my control, I can take out All Might with one punch. The villain's smile grew as he took advantage of Bakugo's fear, forcing his explosions to continue blasting towards the heroes, trying to rescue him. The civilians watching were slightly frightened by the scene, the dread growing within each of them, but covered by the enthusiasm they all felt at seeing heroes at work. Civilian 1. Whoa, is that some kind of special move? Civilian 2. This dude is a legit supervillain. Civilian 3. Gasp, look at her. That new hero, MT Lady, will stop him. A woman shouted starry-eyed, seeing the giant heroine. Unfortunately, MT Lady had to stop since the buildings were too close together. Gasp, my only weakness, I'll need at least a 2-lane road if I want to make my way through. She shouted in her giant form. Kamui swung in and grabbed several civilians from the fire to get them out, while also making sure to avoid touching the flames himself. Fire and wood don't exactly make a good combination. I'll need to leave someone else to handle this guy. He shouted to his allies while swinging away using wooden tendrils. Meanwhile, Backdraft had set his attention on the buildings around him, using his quirk to fire jets of water onto the growing embers. Don't look at me, I've got my hands full here. Where are those fire trucks, anyone? He shouted to the other heroes, focusing completely on the area around him. Meanwhile, the heroes could only grit their teeth at being unable to help the boy, while a few were more angered by the lack of room to take the spotlight for themselves. Death Arms. I can't get a grip on his weird body, and that kid keeps causing explosions left and right. We gotta knock him out of the park somehow. Bakugo continued, struggling. His shaking form proved to Death Arms that he was still alive while trapped, though the sludge villain took advantage of his distraction to attack once again with a slime tendril. Incoming, shouted the hero, jumping back, dodging another of the villain's tendrils. Death Arms. It's a no good, we don't have the right quirks to take down a villain like this. Extra hero. We just gotta keep it under control till someone else gets here. The heroes who had once approached to save the day and secure the cameras now could only grit their teeth and hide back with their tails between their legs. And all the while the flames only grew brighter, burned hotter, and consumed more. Fortunately, Backdraft hadn't stopped using his own abilities to keep the flames away from the people. Backdraft. There's still plenty of people to save. Kamui. Don't worry, I bet every hero in the city is on their way. Though frightened of touching flames, the wooden hero still swung down, picking up more civilians and taking them away from the fight. Death Arms, however, the muscle of the group, could only look down on himself. He knew he lacked the strength necessary to deal with the villain, and as such, his resolve began to dwindle. Death Arms' thoughts. Sorry, kid, you're just gonna have to hold on a little longer. Death Arms. If only I had more power, I could blow this guy away. Meanwhile, All Might and Izuku had just arrived to hear the people trying to support the heroes who could do nothing but watch in quiet resentment towards the evildoer. All Might thoughts. I must have dropped him in the air. I got distracted worrying about my time limit. I can't believe I made such a rookie mistake. His hand gripped the shirt over his wound. I'm pathetic, he said to himself. The blame for what was happening he felt belonged solely to him. Izuku POV. Izuku thoughts. Gas, that's the guy who attacked me. He shouted to himself in shock, recalling the events that occurred a few hours ago. No way. All Might captured him, he thought to himself, while looking at the pro beside him before recalling how he latched on All Might's leg, and the horrifying realization dawned on him. Izuku. The bottle, if he dropped it, that means it's my fault. The sludge villain, taking his chance while the heroes cowered away from him, swung his tendril straight at the civilians, who shrieked in terror when the heroine MT Lady had shrunk herself enough to stand in front of them and take the brunt of the blow, holding her arms in front of her face to shield it from damage. MT Lady, everyone stay back. She screamed, the tendril smashing straight into her arms, sending her feet skidding back and forcing her on her knees. Though a pro, she was experience with her smaller giant form was something she lacked quite a bit of. Izuka thoughts, it's my fault. This is all my fault, and he's already caught someone. How can they? Breathe, I thought I'd die in only a few minutes. He covered his mouth, shocked and horrified, feeling as if he was the true villain here, the one who caused the mess in the first place. Meanwhile, the voices of those around him echoed through both his and All Might's minds. Civilian 4. Wait, I'm confused. Isn't that the villain All Might was chasing today? Civilian 5. What All Might? But did he somehow lose then? Where's he? Civilian 6. Can't someone call him or something? Civilian 7. Yeah, where is he? All Might looked down in shame, and so did Izuku, both blaming themselves. Izuka thoughts, this is all my fault, I'm the one to blame. All Might thoughts, I'm worthless. Izuka thoughts, he can't power up yet, and none of the other heroes have the quirks to stop this monster. All Might thoughts, so pathetic. Izuka thoughts, it's my fault, I'm sorry, so sorry. All Might thoughts, disgrace. Izuka thoughts, help will show up and save the day, I'm sure. All Might thoughts, I'm not a real hero. Izuka thoughts, someone a real hero will come soon. Boom. MT Lady. Izuku focused his gaze back at the fight to see MT Lady rolling on the ground. A look of fear on her face as the costume around her arms had been torn apart by the blows, revealing purplish skin underneath. A single step, a leap of faith, and all it would take was the drive of a hero. Izuku sprinted forward right through the crowd. Hesitation, fear, self-blame. All of it was burned from his mind as he stood in front of the downed heroine. Civilian 8. Hey, who is that? Pro hero. Get out of here, kid. MT Lady looked up to see a familiar head of green hair, the single person during her debut who defended her like a gentleman, though she was posing intentionally. MT Lady, wait, you're that kid from earlier. Go get out of here, he'll hurt you. She shouted, worried for him, I'm sorry. But I can't do that. He turned around to face her with a shaky smile. Because you looked like you needed help. 7 words and a shaky smile. To anyone, it would have seemed as someone trying to be a hero. A boy took small to fit the boots he claimed to wear. But to the heroine who had felt a fear for her life, they were a shining light, and with them a small flicker of hope was lit inside. Izuku turned his attention back to the trash that had trapped him earlier and began approaching the villain, his heart beating a mile a minute, the echo of his pulse blocking the sound of the world around him. Villain, you again. All Might saved you once, but this time I'm going to kill you. The villain's raised its tendril in the air. Hero, watch out. Death arms, save a boy. Time seemed to slow. Shadows of a past he'd wanted to forget surged throughout his mind. Echoes of a past that he longed to have been a simple nightmare. He knew that if he chose this path, there was no going back. But still, if he can use his curse to help save his childhood friend trapped in the sludge villain's hold, if he can use his abilities to keep MT Lady safe, then why shouldn't he? Izuka thoughts, I won't back down. Monster, demon, someone help. Though the memories raged through his mind. Izuka thoughts, I won't let him hurt her. You're the devil. Get away from me. Deku. Izuku looked down the memories of his traumatizing past, replaying in his head, and his hand began shaking. Bakugo, who had been screaming widely and become quite, his eyes hazy as his head began to fall limp, the lack of oxygen knocking him out. All Might. Ha ha, there's no need, to fierce citizen, for I am here. Kid Izuku. He's the coolest in the universe, and when I get my quirk, I'm going to be just like him. Inko Super. Kid Izuku, super. A young Izuku stood in the center of the part again. His impure arm glowed an ominous crimson as he watching children run from him with tears streaming down his cheeks. This thing isn't a quirk, but a curse. A demon, a monster. He didn't know what he was, not as he was bullied, not as he was mocked and hurt for what he couldn't control. But even still, in a flashback, Izuku's eyes shot open, becoming crimson red, surrounded by orange. Lightning of orange color surrounded his fist as he clenched it tight. Izuku, come forth at once, impurity arm. He'll use this cursed power to protect people. MT Lady, look out. The villain sent a tendril straight at Izuku. Civilian 9, AH. A blast of air pressure destroyed the tendril and replaced Izuku's entire arm with his impurity arm. Its appearance sent a wave of fear and curiosity through the crowd, but none more than All Might felt as intrigued nor as speechless as he did when he watched that boy protect a downed heroine. MT Lady, what just happened? Civilian 10, is that his quirk? Civilian 11, it's kind of scary. The adrenaline pumped through his veins like a toxin, addictive and full of rush. The boy smiled and took a step forward. Izuku, come on. The villain moved back a little, scared from the sheer pressure he alone could feel from the arm, like a predator hunting its prey. Izuku, for everything you've done, I'll make you pay. Izuku blasted from his spot at unseeable speeds. Pulling his arm back and throwing a powerful punch, he used his other arm to grab onto the unconscious Bakugo while destroying the villain and putting out all the fire as an exorcist star formed itself right after the villain destruction. Civilian 12, did that just happen? Civilian 13, he just changed the weather with a single punch, like All Might. Civilian 14, he saved the day, that kid's amazing. Awe and shock ran through the minds of everyone present at the feat the young teen had displayed. After that, the heroes collected all the sludge villain's remains, and the police took him into custody. Bakugo was given compliments due to how much he resisted the villain. After waking up having been knocked out earlier from the lack of oxygen, and shockingly, I was also given compliments by some people. Izuku was busy staring at his shaking hand, which de-transformed as he held it close to his chest, feeling his heart beating faster. All Might thoughts. Is that the power which he fears? Asked All Might to himself from inside the crowd. Kamui, you moron, do you have a death wish? Kamui suddenly approached Izuku, followed by Death Arms. Death Arms, there is absolutely no reason for you to put yourself in danger like that. Kamui, it was reckless and foolish. You should have let us do our jobs. Izuku looked down in shame when he felt someone put their hand on his shoulder. Turning around, he saw it was MT Lady. MT Lady, leave him alone, you. Two, he's probably shaken up from you two shouting at him, and he saved me as well as that kid. He did what we couldn't, so how about we leave him with a warning? The two looked at each other before sighing. Death Arm smiled and ruffled Izuku's hair. I guess she's right. Good job, kid, but don't do it again. Izuku blushed, slightly embarrassed, before smiling and nodding when MT Lady then whispered in his ear, a small blush on her cheeks. I thought you were a cool little hero. Feeling her kiss his cheek, Izuku became bright red, causing the pros to laugh. Kamui, MT Lady, please, he's still a minor, have some shame. MT Lady blushed, embarrassed by that. I was just teasing him. She shouted, flustered. Kamui, sure you were anyway. Hey kid, what's your name? Izuku. Oh, Izuku Midoriya, sir. Kamui, well then Izuku Midoriya, if you're thinking about becoming a hero, I'd be happy to take you on as a sidekick later down the line. What do you think? Death Arms, hey, this kid clearly has a strength quirk, so I should be the one taking him, right kid? Kamui, no way he's coming with me. They both looked at Izuku, who could only stutter a response before feeling MT Lady wrap her arms around his neck and buried his head in her bountiful melons. MT Lady, sorry boys, but this little cutie is coming with me. Izuku turned bright red and nearly fainted as the three heroes argued over him. Meanwhile, Bakugo was glaring hatefully at Izuku, confused by what had happened while he was knocked out and being told that he should thank the green-haired boy for saving his life. Time skip. People all over Mustafa were watching what happened on the news, revealing Bakugo's and Izuku's faces on the screen. Meanwhile, Izuku was on his way home. I wanted to apologize to All Might, but he wasn't anywhere in the crowd, so I couldn't. In any case, I was lucky enough that those reporters let me go home thanks to the pro heroes intervening, but he looked down. The sheer power he had felt today, though still wild and strong, was now under his contract. Bakugo, Deku. Izuku turned to see Bakugo run up to him. Izuku, Kachan? Bakugo, oh, I Deku. What the hell was that, huh? I don't know what the hell happened, but just because those heroes were fawning over your useless bum, don't you dare think you're better than me. I didn't need your help, you hear me? You did nothing. I never needed your help, loser. He turned around and walked away, wondering what Izuka did for everyone to fawn over him. Meanwhile, Izuka looked down to the floor. Even though Kaken was knocked out, I have to wonder, did I really help out by using this power of mine? I am here. All Might in his buff form yelled as he slid out an alleyway, making Izuku jump back in surprise. All Might, what are you doing here? You scared me. He shouted at him, ha ha ha, I am here, Bika. He couldn't finish as he spit out vital fluid and turned back to his scrawny form. Ah, All Might. Young man, I came here to thank you and also to discuss your question from earlier. If you hadn't told me about your situation, if you hadn't run into that fight and saved that boy, I would have forgotten why I became the symbol of peace. Izuka, what no? It was my fault he got away to begin with. I wasted your energy and not to mention your time. All Might, I'm not done. You told me that you were afraid of that power of yours, and that was clear to me. But you saved those pros and that young man despite your fear. There are stories about every hero, how they became great. Most have one thing in common: their bodies moved before they had a chance to think. Almost on their own. Izuku teared up. Monster. Devil. Demons, stay away. I hate you. And today that's what happened to you, right? Izuku fell to his knees, feeling a weight on his shoulders slowly disappear. I wish I could have told you, Mom, but I was scared. I was scared that you, like so many others, would push me away. All Might, young man, with that power of yours, you too can become a hero. You are worthy of inheriting my quirk. Izuku, what do you mean inherit your quirk? Ha ha, you should see your face right now. Don't worry, I'm not going to force this on you. Listen well, young man. Do you want to inherit my awesome power or not? Izuku still looked at him in shock and confusion. All Might, there are a few things you should know about my power. Journalists always guess my quirk as either super strength or invulnerability. People ask me questions about my quirk, but I make a joke and dodge the question. That's because people need to believe that the symbol of peace is a natural-born hero. But I'm not. There's nothing natural about my power. All Might tilted his head back and spread his arm in the air and said, I wasn't born with this power. It was a sacred torch that was passed down to me by someone else. Izuku could only look at All Might with shock and ask, someone gave you your quirk? No way. All Might, yes way, and you're next. I could give you my abilities. Izuku, hold on, this is a lot to process. It's true, there's a lot of debate about your quirk, and mumble. All Might, stop nerding out. You just have to adjust to reality and accept this new truth. I can transfer my quirk to someone else, and that's just one facet of my true abilities. The true name of my power is One for All. Izuku, 1. 4. All? He muttered in awe as All Might held out his hand with a celestial glow illuminating from within it. All Might. Yes, one person improves the power, then hands it over to another person, and it continues to grow as it's passed along. It is this cultivated power that allows me to save those in need of a hero. That is the truth behind my strength. Izuku, but why you heard some of those people? They said my power was scary, and Kachan just came and told me I wasn't needed. I only caused trouble, so why? All Might, I've been on the lookout for a worthy successor. And then I watched you save MT Lady while we all stood ideally by. You may have a curse, but to me it's a gift. You were the hero today, no matter what anyone says. So, what do you say, kid? Will you accept? Izuku looked down, clenching his fist. He looked up with determination in his eyes. Yes. Mom, I'm home. Izuku called out, entering his apartment, when his mother came sprinting towards him. Izuku. Inko hugged her son, but she was crying with the stress and terror that had been evoked when the news she had been watching suddenly changed to show her own child fighting against a villain shook her to her core. Izuku, Mom, what's wrong? Inko, I was so worried about you when I saw you on the news fighting that villain. What were you thinking? And what was that thing on your arm? Every question she asked was filled with stress, anxiety, and fear. Fear of what had happened when she hadn't been looking. Oh, you saw that? Asked Izuku, looking to the side, nervously. Of course I saw that. It was all over the news. Are you hurt? Are you hungry? Oh, I never thought my little Izuku could be so strong, she said, pinching his cheeks. Izuku was her son, her heart. Even if she had a million more questions to ask, his well-being came first to her. Mom, I'm not a little kid anymore, and Izuku stops as he looked down, and though maybe I should use this chance to explain what's happening tomorrow as well as what is going on with my arm. Okay, here we go. Izuku. Mom, I awakened my quirk a while ago, and tomorrow I'm going to start training with someone for the entrance exam in U.A, so I can follow my path to becoming the #1 hero like All Might. Izuku smiled, hoping his mother would be happy for him, but he was wrong. Izuku, you can't go to U.A. Her words, they were always meant to lift him up despite his sad beginnings. But this time, they meant the same as they did the first time he asked if he could be a hero like All Might, and her response was always the same, I don't believe in you. Inko, I know this may sound cruel, but you just can't, despite what happened today, it won't be enough with you suddenly gaining a quirk that we know nothing about. I can't knowingly let you go because you could seriously hurt yourself. I can't lose you, Izuku. Izuku looked down, feeling something dark growing in him. The raw and restrained hate of the curse invaded his mind, its voice twisting and shrouding the small amount of joy he had felt a few minutes ago, the pain that burst forth from his chest, giving it the room it needed to invade. Izuku, why? Why can't you just believe in me? Izuku's voice became deeper as tears began forming in his misty eyes. Inko could only look at her son with sadness, but immediately it turned into shock and subtle fear as she paled when orange lightning bounced off her son's arm and his eyes glowed crimson red. Izuku, why? Why, tell me, why can't you believe in me? In a flash of red, the impurity arm revealed its frightening self. Izuku, stop! Inko shouted, scared. Izuku, rage-filled eyes dimmed and became an emerald green again. He looked at her, confused by the fear in her eyes, till he saw his arm revealing itself. The pieces of what had happened fell into place, and he immediately removed it. Prostrating himself on the floor, his cries the only sound his mother could hear as he begged for forgiveness. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. Please don't leave me alone. Izuku cried, shocking Inko. Sure, she had been a little scared, but it wasn't of him. It was of the feeling the arms radiated. What do you mean, leave you? Why would I? Inko asked in tears. Nothing could hurt her more than the fear her son displayed of her at this moment. Izuku, because you're scared of me, I hate this power because it scares everyone, and I didn't want to lose you too, so I hid it from you. His words, everything he said, revealed a fraction of terror and of the pain he hid from her for so long. Please don't think like that, Izuku. You're my baby, and I love you more than you could ever know. I won't leave you. Not even if you had the most evil-looking quirk in the world, Inko told her son, as Izuku held her tight, letting out his frustration and guilt through a waterfall of tears. No matter how many times he needed her, she'd always been there. His symbol of light, his beacon of hope. Within the warm arms of his beloved mother, he always found solace. Inko, so you're going to train tomorrow, huh? Well then, do your best, okay? And please don't hurt yourself too much. Looking up with his eyes slightly red and misty, he sniffled back his tears and looking at her with a myriad of emotions. Fear, confusion, shock, and more than anything, happiness. Izuku, wait, does that mean? Inko, yes, you can train this abilities of yours and go to the entrance exam, but I want to ask you something. When did you get this power, and is it really a quirk? She asked, holding his right arm. Izuku, I don't know if it's really a quirk, but to me it's a curse. One I know nothing about, the only thing that I know is it makes me stronger and faster. Izuku looked down as Inko cried again, the guilt of knowing that her own son feared that she would leave him just for having a scary ability eating away at her sensitive heart. Inko, so you had it this entire time and you didn't tell me because you were afraid? All those times our neighbors moved out, or the teacher from your old kindergarten called you a monster, it was because of this. Izuku could only nod his head with shame as Inko hugged her son even tighter than before as she apologized again. Inko, I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm so sorry. I didn't know and thought that all those people were treating you like that for not having a quirk. I believe you were all right behind that sweet smile of yours, but you did it for me all this time. Please forgive me, baby. I'm so sorry, please. Izuku hugged his mother tight. I've never blamed you. Only myself, because you were the only one left in this world who cared about me, Inko cried against his neck, happy for a son like him. feeling blessed but worried, as all mothers did when their children were old enough to leave the nest. Time skip. Lying in his bed after a meal of grilled fish, rice and miso soup, Izuku started moving his head aggressively as sweat climbed down his forehead, and the cursed arm revealed itself again, though this time its previously dim glow grew enough to blind anyone who opened his bedroom door. In Izuku's mindscape, Izuku's body hovered within a void of darkness, but no fear, no confusion had been inside. Maybe it was because this place was within his own mind, or maybe it was the stream of memories flying around him lighting the place up, but he knew that this was not an attack or somewhere he didn't belong. It was his mind. Izuku, whoa, where am I? Is this my mindscape? I was sure my own mind would look a lot better than what it is now. I must be super tired to think of anything. Whoa. His voice echoed through the space when out of nowhere he fell and hit what seemed to be the ground. A crimson light flashed in front of him, forcing the boy to look up when a figure approached from behind with a teasing smirk revealing spiky white teeth. Unknown character. Actually, I made it like this so we didn't have any distractions, sorry kid. Izuku stood up face to face with a brown-haired, tall male with red eyes and sharp teeth. He wore a black suit with red LED lights around the suit, and he carried a sheepish smile on his face. Izuku, who are you? The teen smiled. I'm Rokuro Amato, one of the twin star exorcists. It's nice to meet you, Izuku. Izuku arrived at Takoba Beach, once a mesmerizing tourist site, but now a filthy place filled to the brim with trash. A young Midoriya, you made it, said All Might in his small form. Izuku smiled a bit and greeted his new teacher/favorite pro hero. Good morning, All Might smiled back. Yes, good morning, young man. Anyway, now, as you know, we'll be doing our training here for the next 10 months. You will return this beach to its former glory, before it was filled with trash for your training. But first, let me see your physique, so we know where to start. Izuku took off his tracksuit jacket, and shocking All Might was the amount of muscles he had on him. Oh my goodness, I never thought young Midoriya would have this kind of body. With this, you could probably use 10% of OFA. Exclaimed All Might, excited and filled with joy as Izuku smiled sheepishly and rubbed the back of his head, slightly flustered by the compliment. Izuku, I started to train when I was 5 years old, so I could go UA without a quirk. Despite my mother's fear of letting me attend the school, she taught me that a hero must always be fit. He said, shocking All Might at how young Izuku started off his training. So with a challenging smirk growing on his skeletal face, All Might clenched his fist and roared out. So let's start our training. Izuku enthusiastically nodded, yes, sir. All Might let out a hearty laugh. Yes, let's get to it. I can't wait to see your progress, my boy. The two smirked at each other, though only Izuku could hear a new voice in his head. Rokuro. Wow, this is going to be one hell of a ride, huh, kid? For months later, Izuku had spent 4 months cleaning the beach, dedicating his time for rest, to do some working out, and learning how to fight from Rokuro, as he needed skills in combat to defend himself and others when he only had his own strength to use against enemies. The beach was fairly easy to clean. He would use different muscles for different tasks, and would make sure to work out every muscle in his body, but that didn't stop him from throwing up when he pushed himself too hard. All Might was always there, as well as Rokuro supporting Izuku, cheering the boy on as he pushed his limits. Rokuro, of course, couldn't teach Izuku with his physical body. Instead, he trained him in his mind's cape on how to fight with the impurity arm and telling him all of its abilities. Slowly, Izuku learned how to use the basic powers of the arm before the more difficult ones. Fortunately, it seemed that the talisman he was given at a younger age still affected the impurity arm. But sadly, unlike his wife, Rokuro wasn't able to teach Izuku how to make talisman to enhance his abilities when one for all or the impurity arm wouldn't be enough. He also explained that the reason Izuku was able to use the arm was because he had been using his own talisman to keep the arm under control and would be able to give the arm to the boy. Spending time with Rokuro and All Might also boosted Izuku's confidence in his ability, but thanks to Rokuro, especially Izuku, was able to find the good in his impurity arm. Rokuro became a new ideal for Izuku to strive towards because his predecessor was put through a living hell, having to kill all his friends when he was only a child and kill his best friend, who was also the brother to Rokuro's wife. It was sick. But what made Izuku idolize him was the goal Rokuro strived to. Like Izuku, who wanted to become the #1 hero for the people, Rokuro wanted to destroy all the Kegar so no one else would have to suffer like he did, so his own child would be able to live in peace. But then one night something strange happened, something that would change everything. In the beginning of the 5th month, Izuku and Rokuro stood in front of 3 girls. 2 were shorter than their tall friend with purple hair. The blue-haired girl was beautiful with mesmerizing golden eyes. She had a petite figure, but a nice, cute appearance to go with it. The second girl had light pink hair and eyes with 2 horns. She wore traditional Chinese princess attire and looked somewhat shy. She was adorable. Finally, their more robust friend. She wore a refined purple suit with the top unbuttoned, revealing a lot of her large cleavage. She had a pretty face and 1 black horn. Izuku slash Rokuro. Who are you? And why are you in my mind? Unknown character. What do you mean your mind? Rokuro was ogling at the purple-haired girl's rack, having a nosebleed, but quickly he turned around. Think of Beanio. Think of Beanio. Think of it, I mean Beanio. Unknown character. We were all relaxing in my nation when cough. The blue-haired girl fell to her knees and coughed out vital fluid. Lady Rimuri, shouted both girls running to her. I can't feel it. I can't feel my magic. And I can't turn into a slime. She told them, horrified by the sudden realization. Unknown character. Neither can I. My magic's been completely sealed off. Unknown character. So has mine, Lady Rimuri. They both replied, equally as frightened. So seeing their fear and worry, Izuku decided to try and get to the bottom of this unexpected circumstance. Izuku, excuse me. Could you please tell us what happened to you guys? The 3 turned to look at Izuku and Rokuro, who had his arms crossed with blood-stained tissues coming out his nose. Rimuri, well, we were having a meeting with my townspeople about a fight we had just dealt with when suddenly a giant beam shot down and hit me. Shuna and Cheyenne here were close and tried pulling me out when sucked us in. Then, Cheyenne, let me, Lady Rimuri, when we were flying through the beam, we managed to pull ourselves out and started seeing images of our friends and the monsters in our town being slaughtered, children, and more. But we have no power and we can't go home. We don't know what to do now. Rimuri and Cheyenne looked down as Shuna began crying. I saw my brother, yet she couldn't finish as she began crying. The girls hugged each other and began crying. Izuku clenched his fist. It didn't matter how strong you are. Seeing someone you love or seeing your people get slaughtered without being able to do anything would be enough to break anyone. Feeling useless, he looked down. But a realization suddenly came to mind, as they weren't the only people to suddenly appear in his mindscape uninvited. So he turned to the one person who may have the slightest idea of knowing how to get them home. Izuku. Rokuro, do you know how they got here? And how we can send them back? Rokuro. And could still have physical bodies, which means they were somehow brought here by someone else, but that shouldn't be possible unless... Izuku, unless what? Rokuro narrowed his eyes. Unless this person is the same one that killed me, and they managed to appear here, because you're some sort of anchor point for cross-dimensional beings. Izuku looked at Rokuro with shock. He knew little of how Rokuro died, because not even Rokuro knew much about his death. All he remembered was that a man with a mask came out of nowhere saying he wanted to build a utopia, but he needed Rokuro's help. But Rokuro just wanted to live in peace with his wife and child. Unfortunately, the man didn't like that and tried killing Rokuro's family. Rokuro succeeded in getting him away from his loved ones, but it cost his life. Looking back to the girls sobbing in front of him, he had to help them, so walking towards them, he offered his hand, causing them to look at him. The void became a beautiful land of green with flowers and sakura trees. To him, it represented a peaceful and more beautiful place for him to try and at least make a connection with them. He's the coolest in the universe. Izuku, I know how you feel. You must feel scared, alone, and like you can't do anything, but I promise I'll get you home. No matter what, he always saves the day. The 3 looked at him with shock as the tree behind him blew its blossoms around them. Izuku, Even if I have to fight a god to do it, I will make you smile again. Do you think I can be a hero too? A flash of a memory blew through their minds. The girls, while falling through the horrifying images of their world being torn apart, saw in the midst of the darkness a single light. A light that could change it all. A radiance so magnificent that it blew apart the chaos that swallowed everything. The girls teared up and jumped on him, crying as they hugged him. This was what they needed, someone to tell them that it would all be okay, someone who promised to fix their broken hope, to be the one thing no one was to him. Izuku thoughts. In light, there will always be evil, but no matter what, if I can give someone back their smile, if I can save them, then that's what I will do starting here. Izuku, so do you girls feel better? He asked with a kind smile. Rimuri, yes. Shuna, MHM. Cheyenne nodded with glee. Izuku, good, I'm glad. Oh yeah, I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you, and this is Rokuro. He pointed to Rokuro, who was smirking. Oh, don't mind me, you lover boy. I'm not here, he said, causing Izuku to blush, but the girls ignored the teasing. Rimuri, it's nice to meet you, Izuku, and as a token of my appreciation. Chew. Rimuri kissed him on the cheek, causing him to blush. Shuna, no fair lady Rimuri. Cheyenne, chew, chew. And song. Both girls kissed him on the cheek at the same time, causing him to become bright red and then wake up. After waking up, Izuku had found himself in between the girls, sleeping on his bed, cuddling him. Izuku's mother entered not long after and fainted, which caused Izuku to freak out, but Rokuro was having the time of his life watching Izuku's most embarrassing moments. Later, Izuku and the girls explained to Inko everything, but kept out Rokuro's existence. Of course, Inko was overjoyed to hear about how her son promised to bring the girls back to their world and awarded him with Katsudon. The girls also joined Izuku in his last months of training, supporting him along with All Might, who was at first shocked to meet the girls, but after being told everything, he too promised to help the girls as best he could. All Might finally gave Izuku his hair on the 9th month, giving Izuku the quirk despite its disgusting transfer method. The quirk proved worth it. The immense strength and speed provided by the quirk, despite its extreme physical backlash, proved itself as the quirk which turned All Might into who he is now. Speaking of OFA, Izuku decided to test it with his impurity arm, which ended up doubling the quirk's percentage of power, but not like raising the percentage, only doubling the strength given by said percentage. However, it was even more difficult to control since it strengthened the impurity arm's darker powers. Luckily, Rimuri, Cheyenne, and Shuna were there to support him and help him control one for all impurity, which turned the energy that surrounded him orange and red. Speaking of the girls, Izuku had grown extremely close with them to the point that he even knew about their interests and even their favorite foods and colors. But what Izuku didn't know was that the girls harbored feelings towards him, which Inko picked up quickly due to how close she herself grew to the girls, almost becoming like a second mother to them. And after finally completing his training, Izuku was given a slight break, which he wanted to use to relax, but the girls were constantly fighting over him, so Inko would often distract them with things like telling them what kind of foods her baby liked and how to make them. Now, growing up, quirkless Izuku didn't have much experience with female audience due to being not only picked on and bullied by his female peers, but also due to a gut-clenching incident that causes Rokuro extreme anger, having watched it through Izuku's memories. And being with these girls brought up new feelings in Izuku. He always felt warm and mushy inside whenever he would interact with them. Cheyenne, Rimuri, and Shuna had brought back something Izuku had lost years ago. Happiness, and seeing how happy he was around the three made Inko's heart dance with joy. Every time he was with them, he could feel something growing inside, a warm feeling that swarmed his stomach with butterflies. So he turned to his elder brother figure and best friend, telling him about his feelings, nothing Rokuro didn't already know, but that didn't stop him from dancing in delight and telling him to tell his mother as well, which he did, causing her to hug her son, glad that he was finally accepting his feeling for the girls like she accepted them as her daughter-in-laws the moment they met. Inko, giggle, remember Izuku, no matter what, respect them, cherish them, and treat them right. If you really do love them and you know it in your heart, then you tell them. That was Inko's lesson to her son about love, but that could wait because finally the day for the exams had finally come. Izuku's eyes fluttered open. Exhaustion still covered his face, but a new day had started, and he knew he needed to get up. Reaching to his left to get up by pushing his weight against the pillow, his hand grabbed something large, warm, soft, and bouncy. He blinked, his face turning a deep shade of red. What happened last night? His thoughts raced back, but the events were fuzzy, like a dream he couldn't quite grasp. His mind still spun with confusion and embarrassment. They had had a large meal with his mother yesterday. He got tired and decided to head in early. When did they get there? And why are the girls naked? He glanced over at the girls, each one peacefully resting, their faces soft with innocence. His body tensed up. I can't believe I'm in this situation. How do I even explain this? Rokuro. Yon morning, Aizu, what the? He shifted carefully, trying not to disturb the girls. As much as he wanted to stay and figure everything out, there was no way he could just stay there. He had to get out of the room. So ignoring Rokuro, he crept towards the edge of the bed. Slowly, Izuku swung his legs off the bed, feeling the coolness of the wooden floor against his feet. He took one last glance at the girls Rimuri, Cheyenne, and Shuna before he stood up and quietly tiptoed toward the door. His heart pounded as he quietly cracked the door open and stepped out, careful not to make a sound. Once in the hallway, he sighed in relief. But even as the door closed behind him, his mind was a whirlpool of thoughts. What was I supposed to do? What is happening to me? His hands trembled as he ran them through his messy hair, but a sharp smell from the kitchen caught his attention. The scent of something delicious wafted through the air, making his stomach growl. Mom's probably already up, Izuku thought as he straightened himself out, shaking off the lingering feelings of confusion. He made his way down the hallway and toward the living room, hoping to find some semblance of normalcy. He rounded the corner and saw his mother, Inko, standing in the kitchen. She was humming a little tune, her hands working skillfully as she cooked breakfast. The scent of grilled fish, rice, and miso soup filled the air, and his stomach rumbled louder than before. "Good morning, Mom," Izuku greeted her, trying to hide the slight tremor in his voice. Inko looked over at him with a warm smile, her face lit up by the soft morning light. "Good morning, Izuku. You're up early today. Did you sleep well?" Izuku nodded, but his cheeks were still tinged with pink. "Yeah, I did. Just kind of strange, though." His mother raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. "Well, that's good to hear. I made your favorite breakfast. You must be hungry after all the excitement lately." Izuku's stomach growled again, making him blush in embarrassment. "Thanks, Mom. I'm starving." Inko chuckled as she placed a plate of steaming food in front of him. "You've been so busy lately with everything. You deserve a good meal." As he sat down at the table, the weight of the day ahead started to settle on his shoulders. Izuku glanced back toward the bedroom where the girls were still sleeping. What now? He wondered. How was he supposed to face everything that had happened and what was still to come? But for now, all he could do was focus on the warmth of the food in front of him. He could hear his mom humming softly as she worked in the kitchen, and for the moment, it was enough to help him find some calm amid the storm swirling in his mind. Izuku was just about to take a bite of his rice when the shrill sound of his alarm pierced the air. His heart skipped a beat as the loud, unmistakable voice of All Might blared through the speakers. "I am here. I am here. I am here." Izuku's eyes went wide. "Oh no, I'm going to be late." He quickly shoved the rest of his food down, hardly tasting it, and sprang to his feet. "Thanks for the breakfast, Mom. I'll be back later," he called out as he rushed toward the door. Inko turned from the stove, her warm smile still on her face. "Have a good day, Izuku. Don't forget your—" But before she could finish, the door slammed shut with a soft thud as Izuku dashed out of the house, practically flying down the steps. His shoes were barely on his feet as he ran, his mind racing as he heard All Might's voice echo in his head. "I am here," the alarm repeated, as if mocking him for his tardiness. Izuku could hear the distant sound of the door opening behind him, but he didn't stop to look back. He had no time. His heart pounded as he ran down the street toward his destination, the sound of All Might's voice still ringing in his ears. A few moments later, the girls stirred from their sleep, stretching and yawning. Rimuri was the first to blink her eyes open, still groggy from sleep. "Huh, Where's Izuku? She mumbled, rubbing her eyes. Shuna, now fully awake, glanced around the room. Is he gone already? She asked, sitting up and glancing toward the door. Just then, Inko walked in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked at the girls with a playful smile. Oh, Izuku left already. He rushed out in a hurry. Said goodbye and everything. She crossed her arms, her eyes twinkling mischievously. I guess he was in a bit of a rush to get to school. The girls exchanged looks, then turned back to Inko, their faces turning bright red as the teasing began. Inko grinned, her voice light and teasing. So, it seems you girls were quite comfy last night, huh? Sleeping beside my son like that. Shuna giggled, clearly flustered. We didn't plan it. We just fell asleep. Rimuri's cheeks were as pink as her usual blush, and she squirmed uncomfortably. It wasn't like that. We were just making sure Izuku was okay after everything, you know? Cheyenne, who had been quieter up until now, cleared her throat softly, her expression composed but still slightly embarrassed. Yes, it was purely out of concern. We didn't mean to make Izuku feel awkward or anything. Inko laughed gently, waving her hand. I know. Don't worry. You girls are very sweet. But it was cute to see you all there. Just be careful next time, all right? You wouldn't want to make my boy too nervous. The girls laughed nervously, glancing at each other, before trying to change the subject. Breakfast smells amazing, Mrs. Midoriya, Shuna said, eager to move the conversation away from the awkwardness. Inko smiled warmly, gesturing toward the table. Of course. I knew you girls would be hungry. The warm sunlight bathed the beach in golden hues as Izuku stood there, staring out at the expansive ocean. His heart lifted as he took into view a place he had visited so many times before, but today it looked different. The sand was nearly spotless, the grains shining clean under the sunlight, as if nature had given the land a fresh breath. The ocean stretched out ahead, its waves gentle and clear, the usual debris and litter that plagued its shores nowhere to be. Found. Rokuro. It really is beautiful, Izuku. Good job. For a brief moment, Izuku allowed himself to take it all in. The tranquil scene felt like a breath of fresh air, the kind of peace he hadn't been able to fully enjoy in a long time. He'd spent many afternoons here before, cleaning up the beach, picking up trash, doing his best to keep this corner of the world from suffering the same fate as so many other places in the city. The effort had been exhausting, and yet, seeing it now in all its pristine beauty made it feel worth every bit of hard work. But even with the beach looking so perfect, there was still a sense of unease. He could feel it deep in his chest. A lingering worry that things might change, that it might slip back into the state of neglect it had once been in. But for now, it was beautiful. A small, hopeful reprieve from the chaos of his everyday life. Izuku took a deep breath, preparing himself to start cleaning once again. He reached for the trash bag he always carried with him and pulled on his gloves, ready to pick up where he left off. The calming sounds of the ocean waves crashing against the shore soothed his nerves, and he felt a sense of determination building inside him. I can keep this place clean. I can make a difference, he thought to himself, kneeling down to grab a piece of plastic that had been left behind in the sand. But just as he was about to stand up, something caught his attention. A sudden sound, someone screaming. It was distant at first, almost indistinguishable from the rush of waves, but it grew louder, more frantic. A girl's voice, pleading for help. Izuku froze, his heart pounding in his chest as the scream echoed through the air, piercing the calm. Help! Please, somebody help! The voice was filled with panic, and Izuku's instincts immediately kicked in. His head snapped toward the source, and his heart jumped into his throat. Out in the water, a figure was struggling, waves crashing around them. A girl. She was thrashing in the water, her orange hair plastered to her face as she kicked and flailed, trying to stay afloat. She was dressed in a loose workout top and shorts, clearly caught off guard by the sudden danger. Izuku's eyes widened as he recognized the desperate panic in her movements. She was struggling, and she was far from the shore. Without a second thought, he sprang into action. His heart raced as he sprinted toward the water, pushing past the shallow waves that tried to pull him back. Each step became heavier as the current grew stronger, but Izuku didn't hesitate. His goal was simple: save her. When he finally reached her, he could see her face contorted with fear, her chest heaving as she gasped for breath. He reached out to grab her arm, but in that moment, the girl's body jerked violently. A strange, powerful force surged through her, and Izuku barely had time to react before massive, oversized hands like the hands of a giant burst out from her body, pushing against the water with an immense force. The quirk was activated. Izuku's eyes widened in shock. Her hands, larger than any normal human's, like two massive, armored fists flung outward, crashing into the water in a desperate attempt to break free from the waves. But with the strength of her quirk, they only made the situation more dangerous. The current began to fight against both of them, and the giant hands only made it harder for Izuku to keep his hold on her. Don't let go," the girl cried, her voice thick with panic. The large hands flailed wildly, each movement causing her to lose more control, and Izuku found himself struggling to keep up with her unpredictable movements. "Hold on, I'm not going to let you go," Izuku shouted, trying to steady her. The sheer size and power of her quirk made everything difficult. Her massive hands sent water splashing everywhere, and the waves crashed against them relentlessly, pulling them both further out. He could feel the strain in his muscles as he fought to keep them both from being dragged under. The girl's breathing was ragged as she struggled to focus, her big hands swiping the water in every direction as if she were trying to fight the ocean itself. But with each flail, her movements became more erratic. Izuku reached for her hand again, his grip tightening. "Listen to me. You gotta calm down. You're safe. I won't let you drown." Her eyes locked with his, desperation mixed with fear. Despite the overwhelming size of her quirk, there was a flicker of understanding in her gaze. Slowly, she stopped trying to thrash against the water. With a strained breath, she retracted her hands, their massive size shrinking back to normal as the power of her quirk subsided. "I'm sorry," she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper, still shaken. "I didn't mean to." Izuku shook his head, ignoring the exhaustion pulling at his body. "It's okay. You're safe now." He pulled her toward the shore, each step feeling like a battle against the waves. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the beach, both collapsing onto the warm sand, panting heavily. The girl was still catching her breath, her heart racing as she wiped the water from her face, trying to hide her embarrassment. She looked up at Izuku, her cheeks flushed from the exertion and the close call. "Thanks, I really thought I was done for." Izuku smiled weakly, still recovering from the adrenaline rush. "No need to thank me. I just did what anyone would have done." "Rokuro." "Yes, sure, anyone." She laughed softly, though it was shaky. "Well, I'm not exactly used to being the one who needs saving." Izuku couldn't help but chuckle. "It happens to the best of us." The girl's expression softened, and she pushed herself up into a sitting position, her hands resting awkwardly at her sides. "I'm Kendo Itsuka. Sorry again for, almost dragging you under." She gave him a sheepish smile, her large hands now back to normal size, though she looked embarrassed by their previous uncontrollable use. Izuku Midoriya," he replied, offering her a hand to help her up. "Glad you're okay, Kendo." As she took his hand and stood, she gave him a more genuine smile. "I guess I should work on my control. Maybe the beach isn't the best place for training." Izuku laughed, shaking his head. "Yeah, maybe not, but you'll get the hang of it." After catching her breath, Kendo took a step back, brushing the sand off her clothes, still embarrassed but trying to play it cool. Her large hands were now back to their normal size, though they were still visibly trembling from the intensity of the ordeal. "I'm really sorry about all that," Kendo said, glancing at Izuku. "You saved me, and I don't even know how to thank you." Izuku scratched the back of his head, his face flushing slightly. "It was no problem. I mean, you were just training, and it was a kind of crazy situation, so..." Kendo grinned, her eyes glinting with a mix of gratitude and something mischievous. "No, seriously. You saved my life. So, how about I treat you to something? To show my appreciation. How about lunch?" "Rokuro, PFFD." Is it finally happening your first date? Izuku blinked, his face turning bright red. Wait, what? No, I'm fine. Really, you don't need to. Kendo's desire to take him out for lunch was something he never expected, but it got him to truly take in her appearance. Kendo is a girl of medium height and has a slim build, with generous proportions both in her behind and on her chest. She has sharp yet rounded teal eyes with white pupils and long orange hair that she typically wears tied into a high ponytail on the left side of her head. Her bangs are split into 3 clumps around her eyes, and some of her hair sticks up in large tufts at the top of her head. All in all, she was probably the 4th most beautiful girl he had ever met. Kendo cut him off with a wave of her hand, her smile widening. Come on, don't be shy. I insist. You've done so much for me already. The least I can do is return the favor. Rokuro, yeah, don't be shy. It's just lunch, man. Izuku felt his heart race as he stumbled for words. Rokuro's attempt at easing the situation not helping at all. But I've got stuff to do. I can't just. His phone buzzed in his pocket, interrupting him. Grateful for the distraction, he fumbled for his phone and checked the screen. To his surprise, it was a message from All Might. Izuku, my boy, don't be shy. A hero must always accept when someone wants to show their gratitude. Take Kendo up on her offer and enjoy the time with a fellow hero. I'll be cheering you on. Flex biceps collision. Izuku's eyes widened. That didn't help at all. Wait, All Might. Izuku muttered under his breath before looking up at Kendo. I don't want to trouble you. Before he could finish, there was a strange rustling sound from behind him. Izuku turned and blinked in confusion. Behind a nearby truck, a familiar figure was crouched low, its skeletal outline clearly visible even from this distance. It was All Might, or rather the skeleton-like version of him when he wasn't using his muscle form. He was crouching behind the truck, his thumbs raised in the air as he gave Izuku a thumbs up, a broad grin plastered across his face. Izuku froze, his face going pale. All Might? Mr. Yagi, what are you doing there? The skeletal hero gave a dramatic, over-the-top nod. Just here to offer support, my boy. His voice was surprisingly loud for someone so thin, and the thumbs up he gave was so exaggerated that it made Izuku even more embarrassed. If you're going to be a hero, you need to embrace every opportunity. Don't be afraid to accept help and companionship. Izuku's eye twitched as he stared at the skeleton version of his mentor, who continued to wave enthusiastically, completely oblivious to the fact that he was hiding behind a truck in a very questionable manner. Kendo tilted her head, eyes narrowed in suspicion, but she wasn't about to let the chance slip by. Is that someone you know? Izuku felt like his whole body was overheating. He tried to stammer out an explanation, but nothing coherent came to mind. Yeah, that's him, but he's just here to support me. He's my trainer, haha. All Might's skeleton form suddenly stood up and did a dramatic, exaggerated pose. Absolutely. You can't say no to a treat from a fellow hero, my boy. Take her out, and make sure you enjoy the time together. Heroes need to have their moments of relaxation too. Do it for your training? Izuku's face turned completely crimson. Seriously, Mr. Yagi, that's not. Kendo, however, was grinning ear to ear now. She could hardly hold in her laughter at the scene unfolding before her eyes. Well, looks like you've got no choice now, huh, Izuku? Izuku just stared at All Might for a moment, still processing the fact that his mentor was literally hiding behind a truck, trying to play matchmaker or something equally absurd. He glanced at Kendo, who was still waiting patiently, and sighed, realizing he was in far too deep to back out now. Rokuro, you've got no choice, bro. Fine. Izuku finally relented, throwing his hands up in defeat. I'll go. Just stop giving me that look, Mr. Yagi. Rokuro, yes. All Might, still behind the truck, gave another enthusiastic thumbs up, then dramatically vanished behind it, as if he were the most inconspicuous figure ever. Izuku shook his head in disbelief. Great, Kendo said, her grin widening. So, where do you want to go? Izuku opened his mouth to protest, but quickly thought better of it. He couldn't argue with the combination of Kendo's persistence and All Might's weird, unexpected approval. Well, I guess I could go for some ramen. Izuku muttered, his cheeks still burning. Ramen it is. Kendo clapped her hands together. Before her cheeks turned a soft red. But do you mind waiting for me to change out of these clothes at home? As embarrassing as it was to take him over to her home on their first meeting, she was completely soaked and smelt like salt water. Sure, Izuku stuttered, but I was enough for Kendo to smile brightly at him. Awesome, thank you, Midoriya. Kendo grabbed his hand, causing his face to go bright red as she pulled him away. Izuku looked around one last time at the beach, hoping that his mother wouldn't find out about this spontaneous outing and teasing him for days, but there was no time to waste. Kendo was already heading toward the street, waving him along with her, and he found himself following her, his mind still reeling from the whole strange encounter. Back at home, in the cozy living room, Rimuri was sitting cross-legged on the floor, her eyes glued to the screen. The girls were all sprawled out on the couch, enjoying the latest Star Wars movie. The familiar sounds of blasters and lightsabers filled the room. Everything was calm, and the group was enjoying the moment. Suddenly, Rimuri sat up straight, her eyes wide, as if some invisible force had snapped her to attention. The girls looked at her in confusion. I sense a disturbance in the force, Rimuri said dramatically, her voice full of mystery and a bit of theatrics like an ancient Jedi master sensing a shift in the balance. The girls blinked in unison. Lost. A what? Shuna asked, still holding her bowl of popcorn. Rimuri's eyes narrowed as she stood up, hand dramatically pressed to her forehead, like she was communing with some far-off entity. Something's happened to Izuku, she said, her voice suddenly serious. I can feel it. The others exchanged glances, then burst out laughing. Oh, Lady Rimuri, Cheyenne said with a grin, you and your disturbances. He's probably about to finish cleaning the beach. Rimuri, however, remained steadfast, her expression unwavering. No, I know it. He's out with a girl, isn't he? The force is strong with this one. Back to Izuku and Kendo. Meanwhile, Izuku was doing his best to keep his composure as he walked alongside Kendo. She had led him out of the busy streets and into a quieter part of the city, where a large traditional dojo stood. The structure was beautifully designed with wooden beams, a large open courtyard, and the unmistakable atmosphere of a place dedicated to training and discipline. Kendo led Izuku up to the front entrance, her pace unhurried as she gestured to him to follow her inside. Welcome to my dojo, she said, opening the sliding door with a flourish. It's not just a place for training, it's also my family's home. Make yourself comfortable, and I'll just be a minute to get changed. Izuku stepped inside and looked around, his eyes widening slightly. The inside was spacious, filled with wooden floors and training equipment stacked along the walls. It had a serene, almost ancient feel to it, so different from the chaotic energy he was used to in his daily life. It was quiet, with only the soft sound of wind rustling through the leaves of the trees in the courtyard. You can wait here, Kendo said, gesturing to a small wooden bench by the side. I won't take long. Just relax, and I'll be right back. Izuku nodded quickly, too embarrassed to say anything else. Yeah, I'll just await here. Kendo flashed him a quick grin before she disappeared down a hallway. Izuku took a seat on the bench, still trying to process everything that had happened earlier. He took a deep breath, his mind replaying the events Kendo, her quirk, the weird encounter with All Might, and now he was here, waiting at a dojo, completely out of his element. I can't believe this is happening, Izuku thought, rubbing his forehead. What even is my life right now? Just then, there was a loud clink from behind him, and he turned to see the door to the dojo open again. But it wasn't Kendo, it was a tall figure in a kimono, walking with an aura of strength and authority. The person was wearing a white training robe, a long black belt wrapped around their waist, and they carried themselves with the confidence of someone who had seen countless battles. Oh, sorry, Izuku said, startled by the appearance. I thought you were, I'm just waiting for Kendo. The figure paused for a moment and then smiled warmly. No worries. You must be this Midoriya my girl's going to lunch with, then. She mentioned it when she passed me to head to her room. I'm Kendo's father. Izuku blinked, looking at the man's solid build and intense, yet kind eyes. He could tell this was someone who had trained rigorously for years. "Ah, nice to meet you. I'm Izuka Midoriya." Kendo's father chuckled. "It's nice to meet you, too. So you're out for ramen, huh?" Izuku's face turned beet red at the mention of that. Well, I didn't really have a choice." Kendo's father raised an eyebrow in amusement. "Don't worry. She's like that with everyone. You'll get used to it." He chuckled again, then turned to leave. "I'll leave you to wait for her, then. She should be done in just a moment." Izuka nodded, his mind still spinning. "Okay, thanks." As Kendo's father disappeared down another hallway, Izuku sank deeper into the bench. "This is so embarrassing. I can't believe I'm in a dojo, sitting here like this. What if she brings me into some super intense training session next?" A few moments later, Kendo returned, looking much more relaxed now in a simple green dress and a black leather jacket with white sneakers, her long hair tied up in a ponytail. She flashed Izuku a bright smile as she walked over to him. "You've been waiting long?" she asked, her expression softening. A faint blush on her cheeks, noticing the gaze of his completely tranced when she walked in. Izuku stood up quickly, trying to look casual despite the awkwardness. "No, not at all." Kendo's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Well then, let's get going. I know a great ramen place nearby, and I'm starving." Izuku followed her out, feeling the weirdness of the situation slowly start to fade as they walked together through the crowd-filled streets. Time skip. Kendo and Izuku arrived at the small, cozy ramen shop, which had the comforting, homey atmosphere of a place that had been around for years. The wooden sign out front read Takeda's Ramen in big, bold letters. It wasn't a flashy place, but there was a warmth to it like something out of a memory, a place where people came to relax and enjoy a simple bowl of ramen. As they stepped inside, the smell of simmering broth and fresh noodles hit them immediately. The chef, an older man with a big, friendly smile, was behind the counter, stirring a large pot. "Kendo-chan, welcome back," the chef called out cheerfully. Kendo grinned and waved. "Hey, Takeda-san, I brought a friend today, Izuku. This is the best ramen chef you'll ever meet, bar none." Izuku waved nervously, still feeling like the whole situation was out of his element. It's nice to meet you, Takeda-san." Takeda chuckled and gave a friendly nod. "Nice to meet you, kid. You're in for a treat today. Kendo has great taste in food, but you'll want to be careful around her. She eats more than most adults." Kendo puffed out her chest proudly. "Hey, someone's got to balance out the world's unhealthy obsession with small portions." Izuku laughed nervously, already feeling the camaraderie between them. He could see why Kendo felt at home here. Takeda quickly prepared 2 bowls of steaming hot ramen, setting them down in front of Izuku and Kendo. "There you go. 2 of the best bowls in town. Enjoy." "Thanks, Takeda-san," Kendo said enthusiastically, taking her chopsticks and diving in without hesitation. Izuku picked up his chopsticks and hesitated for a moment before he slurped up some noodles. The taste immediately hit him, warm and comforting, unlike anything he'd had before. It was rich, savory, and just the right amount of spicy. He couldn't help but smile. "This is amazing," Izuku exclaimed. "I've never had ramen like this before." Kendo gave a satisfied grin. Clear reaction. "Told you, right? Takeda's ramen is top tier. I've been coming here ever since I was a kid. The flavor's just different." They continued eating, and as they did, the conversation flowed easily. Kendo told Izuku a little about her background, how she'd been training in martial arts, and had aspirations of becoming a pro hero who specialized in close combat. Izuku shared his own story, how he wanted to become a hero like All Might despite not having a quirk, his current struggles, and his determination to make it work somehow. "Well, that's pretty gutsy," Kendo said thoughtfully after hearing his story. "But I respect that. Not everyone can push through without something like a quirk backing them up." Izuku blushed a little at the praise, scratching the back of his head. "I mean, I don't really have much of a choice. I've always looked up to All Might. He's a symbol of hope, and I want to be like him, someone who can protect people no matter what." Kendo nodded, her expression serious. "That's a solid reason. I could tell you've got the heart of a hero, Izuku." They shared a brief, meaningful glance before continuing to eat, their mutual respect for each other growing with every word exchanged. Bang! A tall man, wearing a dark coat and grinning maliciously, barged in, causing the bell above the door to jingle violently. His hair was spiked, and his face looked rough, with an unsettling air about him. But it was his appearance that truly made everyone freeze. The man's left side had transformed into something massive, a lion's head with a menacing mane, and his entire left arm was covered in thick, dark fur. His legs had grown muscular and bull-like with claws where his feet should have been. The sight of his monstrous, half-human form sent a shockwave of discomfort through the restaurant. "All right, everyone, this is a robbery," the man snarled, his voice rough and commanding. His lion-like features twitched as his eyes scanned the room. "I'll take all your money and any valuables you've got. Don't try anything funny." The customers in Takeda were all frozen, some visibly frightened by the intimidating figure in front of them. Kendo's chopsticks clattered to the floor as her eyes narrowed, her expression immediately shifting from relaxed to serious. "Give me the money, now," the villain bellowed, his voice rough like gravel, his lion-like nostrils flaring with each breath. Takeda, the shop's friendly chef, was visibly shaken, his hands trembling as he reached for the register. "Please, sir, there's no need for violence. Just take what you want, just leave." But the villain wasn't satisfied. He glared down at the elderly man and then reached over, slamming a clawed hand onto the counter, causing the wood to splinter under his grip. "I want more than that." "What, you think I'll just take a few measly bills and leave?" "I want it all." Kendo, standing beside Izuku, her usual confident demeanor cracked under the tension, her hands clenched into fists. "Izuku, we need to go," she whispered urgently. "This is too dangerous for us. There must be some heroes outside." Izuku, however, didn't move. He watched the scene unfolding before him, the cold air of determination creeping into his chest. No, he couldn't let it happen. Not while he was here. The villain's eyes flicked to the corner of the room, where a child, sitting with their parents, was crying. The innocent wails pierced the air, adding to the chaos. The villain turned his gaze toward the child with a sinister grin. "Shut that brat up," he sneered, his voice low and dangerous. "I hate whiny little pests like that." The child's crying grew louder, filling the shop with desperation. The parents struggled to console their child, but it was hopeless. The villain's anger was rising. "Enough!" the villain roared. His clawed hand shot up into the air, and with a horrifying screech, he swung it downward, aiming directly at the helpless child. The room held its breath. Kendo's eyes went wide in terror, and Takeda let out a strangled gasp. The parents could only scream in helpless fear, unable to protect their child from the monstrous attack. But Izuku didn't hesitate. "No!" Izuku shouted, his voice a blend of panic and determination. Without another thought, he leaped forward, his body moving almost instinctively. His impurity arm extended outward, glowing brightly as it shot toward the villain's descending claw. With a loud crash, the villain's claw collided with Izuku's impurity arm. The impact was overwhelming, sending shockwaves through Izuku's body, but his arm held firm. He gritted his teeth, pushing back with all the strength he could muster. The villain's predator-like eyes narrowed in disbelief. "What the?" he growled, trying to force his claw through Izuku's arm. "You think you can stop me, kid?" Izuku's voice was strong, despite the strain on his body. "I won't let you hurt them." His impurity arm glowed brighter as he pushed the villain's claw back, forcing the villain to stumble slightly. The villain snarled, furious that this child dared to stand in his way. But as he took another step forward, his eyes narrowed, and his hand reared back for another strike. Kendo, visibly panicked, turned to Izuku. "Izuku, this isn't a fight we can win," she urged, her voice shaking. "We have to get out of here before. I can't just run away." Izuku snapped, his voice full of conviction. His eyes were locked onto the villain's, his stance unwavering. "I won't let anyone get hurt while I'm here." The parents behind Izuku, the customers in the store, everyone around, even if for a brief second, could see the transparent back of a figure whose very presence could change terror to hope. Kendo's face softened at Izuku's words, but she was still afraid. Kendo thoughts. I can't stop shaking. We both want to be heroes. Even if I'm afraid, I can't run away. I have to help him. Roar. The lion-like villain roared with pure and crouching on top of one of the tables, his form grew larger and shined a golden hue. Villain, I'll kill you. He roared, launching straight at Izuku with intent to kill. But before his clawed hands could reach the boy's face, its body had been grabbed by two large hands. Kendo, and no you don't, she shouted as the villain began scratching and clawing her hands, trying to get out. But despite the pain of his claws tearing through her skin, she didn't let go for a second. Izuku, Kendo, he muttered in shock as she smirked at him. I want it too. I want to be a hero too. Izuku smiled at her and took a running stance, his impurity arm shining with orange flames bursting out by the second surrounding his fist. Izuku, then here I come. He launched towards the lion, reeling his fist back, fire surrounding it like a vortex, and struck with all his strength. Upon impact, the lion's nose was broken, as was half the bones in his face, caving in and causing vital fluid to rupture, before it was launched back straight through the walls in front of it, landing in the ground, skidding through it, creating a deep divide as it stopped right before touching the street. Civilians surrounding the villain screamed while some recorded, but none were louder nor more active than the restaurant Patreons who cheered on their heroes. Great job, heroes. Thank you so much. You saved us. Rokuro, yeah. I knew you had it in you, Izuku. Izuku, still a little flustered from everything, rubbed the back of his neck. Ah, thanks. I didn't really think it through, but I guess it worked out. He glanced over at the cheering customers, a shy smile tugging at his lips. I didn't expect this much attention, though. Kendo chuckled, her eyes glinting with amusement. What? You didn't think saving the day would get you a bit of praise? Izuku. Oh, Kendo, your hands. Kendo smiled, with her hands shrinking back to normal size, and with them the cuts became small scratches, shocking Izuku. Before Kendo could respond, however, the sound of sirens outside grew louder. A few moments later, the door to the ramen shop opened, and the police arrived, led by none other than Detective Tsukachi. All right, everyone, stay calm, Tsukachi said in his usual professional tone. His gaze quickly locked onto Izuku and Kendo. You two are the ones who handled this, huh? Izuku stood straighter, his expression shifting to one of seriousness as Tsukachi began to ask questions. Can you both tell me what happened here? Start from the beginning. Kendo spoke first, her voice steady despite the chaos that had just occurred. A villain barged in, demanding money. Then a kid started crying, and he got angry. Izuku nodded, his voice clear as he explained his actions. The villain threatened a child, and I couldn't let that happen. I used my quirk to stop him from attacking. Tsukachi furrowed his brow, glancing at Izuku thoughtfully. Your quirk, huh? We need to look into that, but it sounds like you did the right thing. No one was seriously hurt, and the villain won't be causing any more problems. Izuku sighed in relief, his shoulders relaxing. I'm just glad no one was injured. After a few more questions and taking statements from the witnesses, Tsukachi gave a nod of approval. All right, you two are free to go for now. Thanks for your help. With a final look at the ramen shop and a stern warning to the remaining customers to stay out of trouble, Tsukachi left, and Izuku and Kendo finally breathed a sigh of relief. Outside the restaurant, as they stepped out onto the street, the evening sun was beginning to dip behind the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the city. The sounds of the busy streets and the chatter of passing pedestrians were a stark contrast to the tension of the restaurant. Izuku and Kendo walked side by side, the night air cool against their skin. Izuku couldn't help but feel lighter now that the confrontation was over. So, Izuku began, looking over at Kendo with a slightly awkward grin. Thanks for, sticking with me back there. I don't think I could have done it without you. Kendo glanced at him, raising an eyebrow. You didn't do too bad yourself. I'd say you've got some real potential, Midoriya. She joked while hearing him say that he couldn't have done it without her made her happy. She knew that he had it all under control. Ah, no way, Izuku protested, waving his hands in front of him. I'm still trying to get the hang of it. honestly. Kendo chuckled. Well, you've got a long way to go, but you're on the right track. They both laughed together, the sound light and easy as they walked through the streets. The conversation shifted between small talk Izuku, talking about his training, and Kendo sharing anecdotes from her past training sessions. It was easy to talk to her, and Izuku found himself genuinely enjoying the time they spent together. As they reached the gates to her dojo, the atmosphere between them shifted, becoming a little quieter and more closer. Well, this is me, Kendo said, stopping at the entrance to her home. She turned to face Izuku, her expression soft. Thanks again for tonight. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in. Izuku gave her a shy smile, rubbing the back of his neck again. It was nothing. I'm just glad everyone's okay. For a moment, they both stood there, looking at each other, the silence comfortable. But just as Izuku turned to walk away, Kendo suddenly called out to him. Wait. Izuku turned back, surprised. Huh? Before he could react, Kendo stepped closer to him, a playful glint in her eyes. She didn't say anything more, she just closed the gap between them and, without warning, leaned up on her tiptoes. Izuku's eyes widened as Kendo gently pressed her lips to his cheek, her touch brief but warm. Thank you, Izuku, she whispered, a hint of a smirk playing at the corners of her lips. Izuku stood frozen for a moment, his heart racing in his chest. Aya, Kendo laughed softly, her expression softening as she stepped back. Good night, Midoriya. You're a real hero. She turned to head inside the dojo, leaving Izuku standing there, still processing what had just happened. His face was red, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. He watched her disappear through the door, a goofy smile spreading across his face as he stood there, still caught in the moment. That day, for the first time in my life, I really was the hero. Time skip. Izuku's breathing grew ragged as he thrashed in his sleep, his body drenched in cold sweat. His mind was being flooded with flashes of images too vivid, too haunting to escape. He tossed and turned, as though trying to outrun the horrors invading his thoughts. His head twisted from side to side on the pillow, his fists clenching at the sheets. Through the darkness, a distant, echoing scream cut through the air. Liz. A flash of light cut through his mind's eye. He saw a man, a warrior, his eyes filled with a painful, desperate sorrow holding the body of a woman. She was pale, her breathing shallow, her once bright eyes now dull and lifeless. Her hand, still warm, slipped from his grasp as he gently cradled her in his arms. Her body was broken, the scene a grim picture of loss and finality. Izuku winced as the image burned into his mind. Then, the warrior's face twisted in anguish, a deep rage boiling inside him. Fallen to ruin, flames licking at the sky, buildings crumbling into dust. The earth cracked open, swallowing what remained of the land, and the warrior, now filled with an intense darkness, raised his hand, sending waves of destructive power rippling outward. The words, hollow and filled with agony, echoed through Izuku's mind. This is the key to their cage. Shadows flickered like wraiths in the periphery of his vision, figures moving in the gloom, their presence looming over everything. They were the shadows of powerful beings, each one carrying a weight of torment and ambition. Their gazes were cold, unforgiving. Izuku clenched his jaw, trying to shut them out, but they just pressed deeper into his mind. One voice pierced through, strained with emotion. Try to rein it in, please, just once for me. It was her voice again, sweet yet sorrowful. The memory of her final moments flashed before Izuku's eyes once more. The warrior and the woman were running, side by side, their faces full of determination, as if they could escape the inevitable. But their world was collapsing around them, and with one final, bone-chilling scream, the woman was struck down, a force of unimaginable power ripping through her. The warrior's voice, thick with emotion, broke through the chaos. Wait for me. But it was too late. His world shattered in that instant as she crumpled to the ground. And then, just as the memory of her death began to sink in, it came again, the coldness, the cruelty of it all. The warrior's anguish, his rage, and his desperation were etched into Izuku's mind. He saw the woman die, over and over again, each time as brutal and hopeless as the last. His body shook violently as the images blurred together, crashing into one another like waves on a rocky shore. The faces, the screams, the pain, everything became too much to bear. Suddenly, the memory stopped. The fog lifted, and Izuku's eyes shot open. His breath was shallow and erratic, his chest rising and falling with each heavy gasp. Sweat poured down his forehead, soaking the sheets beneath him. His heart pounded as though it were trying to break free from his chest. He was trembling, not just from the nightmare, but from the weight of it all. Looking down, he found his hand clutched tightly around something cold and metallic, something small but significant. His fingers tightened around it, lifting it up to examine in the dim light of his room. It was the key, the dragon-shaped key, worn and battle-scarred, its surface rough to the touch. Izuku's mind raced. He didn't understand. Why did he have this? How had it ended up in his hand? The weight of the key seemed to resonate with his pulse, as if it carried the very weight of the memories that had assaulted him. As he stared at it, he couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just a relic from the past. It was something much deeper, tied to something beyond his understanding. Still panting, Izuku tried to shake off the remnants of the vision. He glanced around, his eyes wild, before taking a slow, shaky breath to ground himself. What was that? What does this mean? The room around him was still. His three companions, Shuna, Cheyenne, and Rimuru, lay peacefully beside him, unaware of the turmoil he had just experienced. But Izuku's hand tightened around the key once more, the shadows of those haunting memories still lingering in the back of his mind. The key, the words echoed again, and Izuku knew, somehow, that this was just the beginning. Izuku could be seen walking towards the UA building. His clothes were baggy, hiding his physique, but you could still see some of the muscles underneath his shirt. Izuku, I made it just in time. Rokuro, MHM, shocking, isn't it? Izuku looked up, revealing tired bags under his eyes, clearly from waking up early. Shut up, Yan, all right, let's do this, he said to hype himself up. Flashback. Izuku stared at the dragon handle in his palm, his expression torn between panic and fear. Unfortunately, the sudden movement of his had caused the girls to wake up. Rimuri, Izuku? She called, rubbing her eyes and seeing his panicky figure flinching at her call. What's wrong, and what's that in your hand? She asked the boy whose body was shaking, gripping the handle like a lifeline. Seeing he wouldn't respond, she slowly reached out to him and touched his shoulder, causing him to jump as she did so. Seeing his fear-ridden face, Shuna slowly pulled him into a hug. Despite his shaking, Izuku didn't have it in him to push her away as she held him. Cheyenne and Rimuri wrapped him in their arms as well. A soft and gentle hug to keep him grounded. In a flashback, Izuku was staring at the handle in his hand before putting it in his bag. Bakugo, stupid Deku. He then turned around and saw Bakugo walking towards him in school uniform with a scarf around his neck. Izuku's expression turned even more tired as his childhood friend bumped shoulders with him, only for the bumpy to stumble back instead. Embarrassed, Bakugo clicked his tongue at him and walked away. Izuku, thoughts. So I still the same Haku-chan. Ever since that day he's let up on me, but I can't say the same for our other classmates. Rokuro, wow, that Pomeranian is so full of himself. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck at Rokuro's comment. I mean, he's not that bad, right? Rokuro gave him the dead fish eyes, causing Izuku to look away. Sweat dropped. Izuku, Saikindo said she wanted to meet me here, but her parents wanted to take some photos of her before the big day, so she won't be here for a while. Rokuro, well, the girls in Inko did the same for you, so I can see why she seemed so annoyed during the call. Hey, isn't that the kid who took on the supervillain? Yeah, I heard he even changed the weather. His name's Midoriya, right? Yeah, he's the real deal. I even heard he took down a supervillain at that ramen place on Siswa Avenue. Izuku's face became bright red as he sped up towards the entrance. He appreciated their words, but they were coming from the wrong place, He didn't want compliments because he had a strong power, but because of his actions so ignoring them, he just walked inside to get this thing started. Unfortunately for him, he ended up bumping into someone due to not looking. The person fell to the floor, letting out a soft MPH as she did so. When he opened his eyes and looked down, a girl with black hair, blue eyes, and a calm, blank expression looked back at him. It was like she had predicted her fall before it happened. Rokuro, unbelievable. Where are all these girls coming from? Careful, she said softly, her tone flat but not unkind as she slowly got back up. Offer her his hand. Izuku blinked. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, are you okay? That could have been really bad. Yui simply nodded once and stared at him quietly. You're nervous, she stated, not as a question, but as a quiet observation. Yeah, kind of obvious, huh? Izuku laughed awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. I've wanted to be here my whole life. Yui didn't respond right away. Her gray eyes studied him for a moment longer. Good luck, she said at last, her voice as quiet and steady as a whisper in snowfall. Then she walked past him, her steps silent, expression unreadable. Izuku stood there, stunned for a second, then clenched his fists, determination flaring in his chest. That girl, she didn't say much, but something about her, she's already so composed. I can't fall behind. He ran after the crowd, heart racing for a different reason now. In the auditorium, present Mike. Mike, what's up, UA candidates? Welcome to UA. Come on, and let me hear ya. No one said a thing till yeah. Izuku shouted as everyone turned to face him, but he didn't care. Mike, thank you, little listener. Now, let's get to it. Are you ready? He shouted out, yeah. Izuku shouted again. Shut up, Deku. Katsuki growled from next to him. Sorry. He whispered back, causing Rokuro to face-palm, wishing Izuku would stand up for himself already. Bakugo thoughts. This little twerp. How dare he think he has a right to be here? Mike, thank you, my little dude. Like your application said today, you rockin' boys and girls will be doing 10-minute mock battles in super cool settings. Here are your lanes, my friends. After I drop the mic, you'll head to your specified battle centers. Sound good? Okay. Bakugo looked at his paper, and then Izuku, I see they're splitting us up, so we don't end up working with friends. Izuku noticed the same thing Bakugo did. Yeah, you're right, our examining numbers are one after another, but we're assigned to different battle centers. Bakugo, get your eyes off my card. I was looking forward to crushing you. He growled at Izuku. Rokuro, say that again, I dare you. Mike, okay, let's check out your villains. There are 3 types of villains in every battle center. You better choose wisely, cause based on their difficulty, the more points you gain using your quirk, shred these villains like a mid-sung guitar solo. But check and make sure you keep things heroic, attacking other examinees. Is a UA? No, you dig? Unknown character. Excuse me, sir, but I have a question. A rigid boy with blue hair wearing glasses and a yellow suit stood up. He looked like the type that followed the rules like they were the last thing on earth. Mike, hit me. Unknown character. On the printout, you've listed 4 types of villains, not 3. With all due respect, if this is a mistake on official UA materials, then it is shameful. We are exemplary students. We only expect the best from Japan's top hero school. Furthermore, you with the green hair. He looked over at Izuku, who looked back at him. You've been muttering this whole time, stop, that if you can't bother to take things seriously, then leave your distracting the rest of us. Izuku raised an eyebrow at him, while Rokuro was growling hatefully at the glasses guy. Sure, Izuku had whispered a little, but Bakugo was literally shouting, so why was he being called out? So thanks for the warning, but if you're too busy watching me, someone who no one complained about, instead of present Mike, doesn't that mean you're just distracting yourself, while also distracting others, since the answer for your earlier question is on the very back of the printout? He asked, making the boy freeze, and everyone around him start chuckling. He's got him there. It is. Dude, check him out. He's kind of jacked for someone our age. Of course, their comments were directed to Izuku's new worked-out appearance. Mike, cough, sorry. All right, examinee 1.1.1, thanks for calling in with your request. And like my green-haired friend said, the answer is on the back of the printout. The 4th villain type is worth 0 points. That guy is just an obstacle we'll be throwing your way. There's one in every battle center. Just try to avoid it. It's not that it can't be beaten, but there's kind of no point. I recommend my listeners try to ignore it and focus on the one top of the chart. Ida, I see. Thank you for answering my question. He bowed before sitting down. Mike, no problem. That's all I got for you today. I'll sign off with a small present, a sample of our school motto. As General Neapolitan once laid down, a true hero overcomes life's misfortunes. Now, that's a tasty soundbite. You ready to go beyond? Let's hear a plus ultra good. Luck, hope you practiced more than hitting just books. Time skip. Boku no Hero Academia. Takahide Koko. Izuku stood in front of his practical exams entrance in your average sports clothes, highlighting his superb figure, a gift from his mother and Shuna before the exams. This was top-grade gear made by hand, or more specifically by their hands. Oh my god, check out those muscles. He's so hot. Izuku, however, wasn't listening. Instead, he was focusing on Rokuro and his own conversation. Rokuro, TCH stupid glasses guy, and Pomeranian jackass, I would kick their ass if I was still alive. Mumble mumble. Izuku, calm down Roku, this thing is going to start soon anyway. Rokuro, I know, but still. He said, annoyed, until they heard someone's heavy breathing and turned to look at a girl with short black hair with red tips, trying hard not to panic. Unknown character. Okay, Rubes, you've got this. Remember what Yang said, even if I'm a youngest hero, I'm the bee's knees. Wait, I don't want to be the bee's anything. So he decided to go comfort her, when suddenly he was forcefully stopped by a hand on his shoulder. Turning around, he saw the glasses-wearing guy in some high-grade training tights. Izuku's eyes widened at recognizing the guy in front of him. Oh, it's him. Unknown character. She looks like she's trying to focus on the trials ahead. What are you going to do to distract her and prevent her from succeeding? Suddenly his wrist was grabbed and his eyes slightly widened. Izuku held his wrist and was tightening his grip. The elitist could feel his wrist starting to hurt from the hard hold. Izuku/Rokuro, don't ever touch us like that again. Izuku and Rokuro spoke at the same time, while glaring at him. Compared to the hell Izuku had endured, he wasn't as strong mentally as one his age should be, but with Rokuro being his mental coach, he was stronger than he would have been back in junior high. Fortunately for him, the moment the gates opened just about enough for a human to fit, looking like a green bolt of lightning, and began destroying the faux villains like they were scrap metal. Meanwhile, the other contestants were all frozen in stunned silence. It was like he just disappeared. Mike, what are you guys doing? There are no countdowns in a real fight. Get moving. Look at my little listener. He's already shredding out there now. Go. 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 Everyone who didn't mock Izuku ran in before the few who came in late. Many times skip. 3 two-pointers approached Izuku, who smashed through them with one punch each. 1 3-pointers approached from behind him, so Izuku spun around and jumped in the air, kicking the robot's head off its body. Izuku fell backwards but used his hands to stop his fall and backflip over the incoming 2-pointer, punching its head into the ground. Finally, 1 more 3-pointer came from in front of him, so standing guard Izuku flicked his fingers 1 for all 10%. He shouted, sending a blast of air pressure at the robot, blowing it up. Izuku smiled gleefully and wiped his face of sweat. Rokuro. Woohoogo Izuku go. Go Izuku. Thanks to All Mights and your training Rokuro, this is nothing. He said, running toward other robots. Mike, 6 minutes left. Meanwhile, teacher's watch room. Nizu. The examinees have no idea how many villains are present or where they are. They have a limited amount of time and must cover a vast number of areas before the time runs out. Some use information-gathering abilities to plan out strategies. They watched one boy with a large number of limbs on a roof. While others rely on speed to pull ahead of their peers, they watch the glasses guy drift through streets. Of course, remaining calm under pressure could be a huge advantage. They watched a blonde boy shoot lasers from his stomach as his pure power and combat ability. They watched Bakugo breathing heavily on the remains of robots. The most successful students are the ones who use a combination of all these tactics. They're the ones who gather the most points. Midnight. Might say this year's bunch is promising, especially him. Midnight's tone turned sultry, biting her lip at seeing Izuku rush in. They all turned their heads to see Izuku dash at high speeds underneath a robot, which cornered an examinee and then destroyed it with one punch through its head. Unknown character. His speed is incredible, as is his physical prowess, his body's flexibility, and the way he's performing. Not a single sound coming out of him, and no wasted movement. Nizu. Well, this is quite the interesting turn of events. Bring me his file. One of the teachers, standing in the back, approached the principal with a folder in hand. Ectoplasm. The way he's moving and the way he fights, it's clear he's been trained to the limit. And what's even more interesting is his expression. While others would boast or taunt, he's remaining calm and not even showing a single expression as he fights like a machine after its target. Midnight opened Izuku's file, which Nizu handed over to her. Interesting. Name, Izuku Midoriya, student of Aldera Junior High. Quirk, superpower, a strong physical enhancement quirk, and crimson gear. Vlad. While the first quirk could already make him a top hero, but a second one. That is quite rare. What's it do? Midnight. It doesn't say. It seems this quirk is quite a mysterious one. Nizu. Indeed, it seems we have a special case this year. Aizawa/Vlad. I want him in my class. Vlad, I know. I demand to be in my class. You've already got Bakugo and that Todoroki boy. Aizawa, be reasonable. Aizawa. I want him in my class, and that's final. Nizu. Gentlemen, we will settle this at a later date. But for now, let's test this young man's spirit to see if he truly has what it takes to be a hero. Nizu pressed a big red button, causing the teachers to get serious and focus on the screens. Meanwhile, All Might became worried. All Might thoughts. You can do this, young Midoriya. Show us all who you are. Back with Izuku. The explosion of dust shook the fake city. The examines all turned towards the explosion to see what was causing them, and many gasped in fear as it destroyed the building surrounding it. It was the Zero-Pointer, a colossal robot. Its monument-colored steel shined brighter underneath the sun's light as its two armored hands grabbed rooftops like cube-shaped toys. Izuku stumbled due to the constant shaking and scampered back in fear. The giant robot ahead seemed like it could crush him by its movement alone. Rokuro. What the hell, that thing's as big as a keg air. Mike. Less than 2 minutes remaining. Izuku decided to leave the area and continue fetching points, about to get up and run when. Help! Somebody help me. He heard the cry of a girl. Izuku turned around, seeing the girl he wanted to help earlier with her foot buried under rubble. Izuku charged at the girl without hesitation, pushing past the other participants, running away, and reaching with a few feet of the Zero-Pointer. Summoning his impurity arm with the talisman, he launched himself straight through the air. One for All's arcs surged around him at 10% further, increasing the ferocity of his impurity arm strength. Izuku. One for All full impurity. Surrounding Izuku was orange and crimson arcs of lightning, violent and rampaging, as he reeled his fist back and threw it forward at full strength. Izuku smash. Smashing his fist forward, the air crackled as a sonic boom echoed through the entire city. The air itself denting the steel before his own fist could impact smash against the giant Zero-Pointer's head. The punch had been so powerful that the giant robot was sent slamming backwards, rolling through the streets and slamming into the walls of the fake city, causing it to blow up in a fiery explosion. Every examinee was left with their eyes wide open and their jaws on the floor due to the seemingly impossible feat done by Izuku, who superhero landed in front of everyone the landing cushion due to the protective aura One for All surrounded him with. Meanwhile, the teachers were jumping up and down, excited and astounded by what Izuku had done. All Might, in particular, was proud to see the young man he trained for so long, the boy he saw as if his own, start his journey to becoming a hero, one the world has never seen. Time skip with Izuku. Izuku was working on his laptop in his room, with Rimuri sitting on his lap. Due to her doing so many times before, it became second nature for Izuku to leave space between him and his desk for her to sit in between them. Rimuri. So you saved someone but missed out on the chance to get more points. I don't know why you're worrying so much. You were still a hero, and they'd have to be pretty stupid too. Reject someone like you, Aizu. Izuku. I know, but still I just wanted to make you all proud. Rimuri. Giggle, yeah, I know. She turned around to look at his face and slowly placed her hand on his cheek, feeling him lean into it with his eyes closed, and holding her hand close to his face, he opened his eyes to face her. She leaned in close to him, and he leaned close to her, putting their heads together. They decided to stay like that. Their closeness was something achieved through a connection that ran deeper than friendship, but more shallow than lovers. Izuku, I promised to take you home, but... She felt his grip on her hand tighten and frowned. The reluctance he displayed being a reflection of her own feelings on the matter. Rimuri, I feel the same way. Izuku looked up at her, and she him before they slowly began leaning in their breaths, gently touching each other's lips. When the door of his room was opened, Izuku, my baby. Izuku jumped and turned to see his mother in her doctor's coat, holding an envelope. Rokuro, no. Why it was just getting good. Ignoring him and his rant on the loss of entertainment, Izuku focused on his mother. Izuku, yes, Mom. Inko, your letter from UA is here. Rimuri got off his lap, and Izuku stood up taking it from his mother. He walked back to his chair. Hey, Izuku looked at her. She smiled at him. No matter what, I'm proud of you, Izuku looked at his mother with wide eyes, and for the first time in a while there was light in them. A small smile found its way on his face as she kissed his forehead and left the room with Rimuri. Izuku opened the envelope, revealing a disc that went automatically turned on revealed Nizu. Nizu, am I a mouse, a bear, or a dog? I am the principal of UA Nizu, and you young Midoriya placed first in the exam. You have not only broken All Might's highest score, but also made history in the UA entrance exam records. I welcome you to UA Academy, Izuku Midoriya. We're pleased to have you. And as for the class you have been assigned to, you are in Class 1, and welcome to your Hero Academia. With that, the message ended. Izuku looked down, his hair shadowed his eyes. Izuku, I made it into my dream school. This is really great, right? I'm on my way to be a hero, and I'm getting closer to helping the girls because I did promise to take them home, right? Drip, drip, drip. So why does my chest hurt so much? Rokuro showed himself in spirit form, standing in front of Izuku and hugging the boy, letting him vent out his pain. After all, he, like Izuku, knew how hard it was to lose the one you love. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, share,